Good evening. The March 23rd, 2026 meeting of the Evanston City Council will come to order. Would the clerk please take the roll?
We will start the roll today with Councilmember Davis, but after we vote her in, Councilmember Rogers.
Here.
Councilmember Heracariz.
Here.
Councilmember Kelly. Councilmember Harris. Present. Councilmember Isles.
Here.
Councilmember Newsma.
Here.
Councilmember Burns.
Here.
Councilmember Suffredin.
Here.
Mayor Biss.
Here. We have a quorum present and are prepared to do our work. The next item on the agenda is approval of virtual councilmember participation. I have in writing a note from Councilmember Davis enumerating a permissible reason for virtual participation. Is there a motion to approve this?
Mr. Mayor, I'd move that we allow for Councilmember Davis to participate remotely.
Second.
Councilmember Rogers moves to approve the virtual participation of Councilmember Davis. Councilmember Harris seconds. Would the clerk please take the roll?
Councilmember Rogers.
Aye.
Councilmember Heracariz.
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly. Aye. Councilmember Harris. Aye. Councilmember Isles.
Aye.
Councilmember Newsma.
Aye.
Councilmember Burns.
Aye.
Councilmember Suffredin.
With 8 voting in favor and none voting against, the motion carries. Councilmember Davis's virtual participation is approved, and Councilmember Davis will be on the roll for the rest of the evening. Now we have my public announcements and proclamations, of which there is one proclaiming Parkinson's Disease Awareness Month for the coming month of April 2026. Whereas Parkinson's disease is a chronic progressive neurological disease and is the second most common neurodegenerative disease in the United States. And whereas Parkinson's disease is estimated to affect approximately 1 million Americans, and the prevalence will more than double by 2040, with 90,000 new cases diagnosed each year in the United States. And whereas Parkinson's disease is the fastest growing neurological disease in the United States, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. And whereas it is estimated the economic burden of Parkinson's disease is at least $51.9 billion annually, with $25.4 billion attributable to direct medical costs, such as hospitalizations and medication, and $26.5 billion in non-medical costs like missed work, lost wages, early forced retirement, and family caregiver time. And whereas research suggests the cause of Parkinson's disease is a combination of genetic and environmental factors, but the exact cause and progression of the disease is still unknown. And whereas there is no cure or drug to slow or halt the progression of the disease. And whereas the symptoms of Parkinson's disease vary from person to person and can include tremors, slowness of movement and rigidity, difficulty with balance, swallowing, chewing, and speaking, cognitive impairment and dementia, mood disorders, and a variety of other non-motor symptoms. And whereas volunteers, researchers, caregivers, and medical professionals are working to improve the quality of life of those living with Parkinson's disease and their families. And whereas increased research, education, and community support services, such as those provided by the Davis Finney Foundation, Michael J. Fox Foundation, Parkinson's Foundation, the Evanston Movers and Shakers Support Group, and other organizations are needed to find more effective treatment and to provide access to quality care to those living with the disease today. Now, therefore, I do hereby proclaim the month of April 2026 as Parkinson's Disease Awareness Month in the city of Evanston. Now, the Evanston Movers and Shakers group has done really wonderful work simultaneously to provide a variety of help and support services to individuals with Parkinson's, as well as to shine a light and provide awareness across the community. And I know there's a large group of the Movers and Shakers here, including Judy, who played a key role in making this proclamation come to be. And so I would just ask all of you to come forward and accept the proclamation, and really ask everyone here to thank this group for the really important work they do to improve the quality of life of so many Evanstonians. The next item on the agenda is the city manager's public announcements.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council members. Clerk Mendoza, I have two announcements tonight. First, we would like to recognize staff from our Public Works Department for an award the city has received. The city's new Evanston Animal Shelter was awarded the Public Works Project of the Year in the Structures $5 to $25 million category by the American Public Works Association Chicago Metro Chapter. The APWA Public Works Project of the Year Award recognizes projects that demonstrate outstanding innovation, design, and construction excellence in the public works field. The Evanston Animal Shelter project was selected for its comprehensive approach to modernizing a deteriorating 1970s facility into a resilient, future-ready public asset. The award highlights projects that positively impact communities, enhance public safety and health, and advance sustainable infrastructure practices. The Evanston Animal Shelter features highlighted by the organization include expanded medical isolation areas and indoor-outdoor kennels for long-term care, enrichment spaces and adoption areas to foster community engagement, a fully electric LEED-aligned design integrating sustainable energy, stormwater management, and bird-friendly features. This project would not have been possible without two key partners. Cook County partnered with the city, ultimately providing $2.85 million in exchange for assistance in housing animals impounded by Cook County. The Evanston Animal Shelter Association contributed $1 million towards the project cost through fundraising. Together, these two partners contributed over 50% of the cost of construction, and the city would not have been able to do the project without them. Vicki Pasenko, who is the executive director for the Evanston Animal Shelter, was not able to attend tonight. We would like to thank her for all her hard work and dedication. At this time, I would like to recognize the city's project manager, Shane Carey, and city engineer, Laura Biggs.
Thank you. My name is Laura Biggs. I'm the city engineer. We received this wonderful plaque for our award and the recognition that goes with building a truly outstanding project, none of which would have been possible without the support of our residents and the city council. So we are very grateful for that. And I really want to recognize how much effort Shane Carey, our project manager, in partnership with Cook County and the Evanston Animal Shelter Association Executive Director Vicki Pasenko put into this. I think they worked on it 15 hours a day for 2 years to get it done. So they really deserve all the credit for the wonderful facility we now have. Thank you, City Council and our staff.
And one more announcement. We're excited to announce the winning name in our naming contest for the new dog park area at Gray Park, Dog E-Town. This creative and community-spirited name was submitted by former Evanston City Council member Jane Grover, who is here this evening. This naming effort was championed by Councilmember Jonathan Nusma and the city's Parks and Recreation Department. We appreciate their initiative in bringing this fun community engagement opportunity to life. Thank you to everyone who participated in the contest and voted for their favorite name. We look forward to officially welcoming residents and their pups to Dog E-Town later this year. And with that, can we ask Councilmember Jane Grover to come up for a picture? voting was totally anonymous, by the way. I didn't know it was Jane until the results were in. There you go. You want to hold it?
Sure. Civic engagement.
We'll do it again at the opening ceremony.
I'll bring all my friends.
And Mayor, that concludes my remarks.
The next item on the agenda is communications from the city clerk.
I just wanted to give a shout out to all our staff that really helped us on election night, and also to our Parks and Rec staff who helped us throughout early voting. Early voting was moved to Robert Crown, and I did not get any negative feedback. Everybody really loved that space, so thank you, Audrey, and to her team, and Vicky at Robert Crown, and also to all the people that helped us on election night. And to, we had help from our facilities team, our public works team, our Parks and Rec team. So elections are run by the Cook County Clerk's office, but we, as I tell people, we are a host to them. And in order to be a great host, it does require the professionalism and the knowledge of all of our staff. So I really do appreciate all of you for lending that to my office on election night. And also, we emailed a whole bunch of public comment to your inboxes. So, and that's all of our announcements. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is public comment. We have, as you all can see, a full house tonight. So everyone will be given a minute and a half this evening. We begin, as always, with those who signed up in person to speak in person, beginning with Douglas Cloud, who will be followed by Scott Roberts, and then Roger Williams.
Good evening. My name is Douglas Cloud and I'm 11 years old and I live right near the intersection I'm here to talk about. I'm here to speak about the Greenleaf-Asbury intersection, which is extremely dangerous. Crashes happen often there and sometimes people get hurt. I also cross that intersection twice a day to go to school. When I was 7 or 8 years old, I saw a crash there and got very scared. And also a couple of weeks ago, I almost got run over myself when walking to school with my brother. I noticed that there's a flag that says there's a stop sign ahead, but it's not enough. Cars still ignore the stop sign. The chief of police said that they've been patrolling the area and they also see the problem and have been issuing citations for ignoring the stop sign. To lower the chances of future crashes and to make that intersection safer, I am begging you to install a traffic light there. It would be horrible if someone got run over, especially if it was a child. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Scott Roberts, who will be followed by Roger Williams, and then Yancey Hughes.
I get to follow that. Thank you. City Council members, Clerk Mendoza, City Manager Stowe, Congressman Biss. I'm here to speak about, that's why I tried to get on here first. I'm here to speak about 30026, adding fines to landlord violations. Renters are the most cost burden of our population. Too often they're portrayed as secondary citizens. In our city government, their needs are usually seen lower than homeowners. I gave you all this map. I did research. Generally, the population of renters is seen as 44% of the city, but it's actually not even like that, especially distorted by the 6th ward, which only has 21%, which lowers that amount. If you look at this by ward, 4 of the wards are majority renters, and we really don't give that population enough attention and support. So I think that this, putting fines on landlord violations is a great start in that direction. We need to do more, like licensing landlords. And I was at the HCDC meeting when we talked about just cause, and a lot of landlords were there, and they said, don't put this on to landlords, like, don't punish us for what the bad actors are doing. Well, if we can't give fines to people who are violating, like, I don't know what the defense of not having a fine would be. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Roger Williams, who will be followed by Yancey Hughes, and then Terry Albach.
Good evening. My name is Roger Williams. I'm the president of Rezoning for Better Evanston. We're here to strongly advocate for the inclusion of monetary fines as a penalty under the Evanston Residential Landlord Tenant Ordinance, RLTO. Our organization has received troubling reports regarding Quadrell Realty Group, which operates 5 properties in our city. Over the past year, they have allegedly engaged in flagrant violations of the RLTO and are currently threatening to non-renew tenants to refuse to sign leases containing illegal provisions. Without financial consequences, the RLTO lacks the teeth necessary to deter such predatory behavior. However, we do believe in a balanced approach. We propose that these fines be discretionary rather than automatic. This allows the city to hold sophisticated actors accountable while remaining fair to small-scale or mom-and-pop landlords who may make honest, non-malicious errors. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Yancey Hughes, who will be followed by Terry Albach, and then Dan Coyne.
Good evening, Council. My name is Yancey Hughes. I'm not 11 years old. I want to speak to some of the egregious behavior also of private equity firms that are here now in the city, primarily Quadrell Realty. They exist pretty much on the belief that the city's hesitation to bring and file suit against them. But with some of the new ordinances passed, hopefully some of that will be remedied much quicker. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Terry Albach, who will be followed by Dan Coyne, and then David Baker.
Hi, I am Terry Alba. I live at 3508 Central Street, directly adjacent to the Unity Church and the redevelopment project going on there. And I have been the one who has been leading the charge for the positive pro-Kensington position. And I have canvassed the neighborhood and had a lot of interaction throughout the Hillside neighborhood. The things that I would like to say tonight are that I want to affirm how Kensington has been responsive to the neighborhood, how they have especially listened to traffic concerns, which the neighbors, as I canvassed, found that that was a big relief. What I did learn was many people did not fully understand the data, and the more they began to understand the data, the more people were pro-Kensington. And so that number has continued to increase. We submitted earlier at Planning and Development the petition that Councilman Suffredin suggested I go out and get with 407 signatures on it. So we've got some strong support for the pro-Kensington position. I also know that you all were sent a video, as was I, of the 3-hour Park Ridge in and out drop-off location. And it's interesting because Park Ridge has the same staff size, same enrollment size. They are on Northwest Highway, very busy street, IDOT controlled just like Grosse Pointe, and they have a residential in and out. Interestingly, as I watched that 3-hour video, there was always an open parking spot in the lot. Most of the time, it was in the 10 to 12 spaces of the very first row. There was never a delay on parents coming in and out. So I think some of the traffic concerns, while valid in that intersection, have been overstated as it relates to Kensington. So I would urge you to vote yes on this measure.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Dan Coyne, who will be followed by David Baker, and then Catherine Lindner.
Mr. Mayor, Ms. City Clerk, Mr. City Manager, City Council members and staff, thank you for your service. I'm Dan Coyne. I live in the 9th Ward, and we are part of the leadership with the Evanston Indivisible group that's putting on a rally this Saturday, No Kings 3.0 in Dawes Park Saturday morning. I just want neighbors to know that they can reach out to us if there's any questions or concerns. We'd be glad to address them. It will be a peaceful gathering in Dawes Park. We'll have about a half hour of a rally and then about an hour of a march in Dawes Park. What's kind of fun, too, this time is we're collaborating with our Evanston group that's collecting food for our community, for those who are food compromised. So anyone can bring some food there. We'll have a truck for donations. We'll be able to collect that and get that over to the fridges for our community and to the families that need food. But thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is David Baker, who will be followed by Catherine Lindner and then Jeff Barini.
Good evening. My name is Dr. David Baker. I live in the 6th Ward, and I'm a member of Unity on the North Shore as well as the current board president. So I'm here obviously to ask you to support the sale of our building to Kensington. 5 years ago, we found out that the building was in very poor condition and could not be repaired. We have subsequently lost HVAC and for several years have now been meeting in the basement of our church. When it rains, now it rains inside the old sanctuary. We were very fortunate and very happy to have Kensington come along as a buyer for this property to allow us to be able to move forward. So this, you'll hear stories about how Kensington has not been a good partner, not been interested in the neighborhood, and that's not been our experience at all. We've worked very closely with them. They have been incredibly patient. They understand, everybody understands that there is traffic. I have to go through this intersection as well. I live very near there. But there will be change. We are a small congregation, and whether it is Kensington coming in, whether it is new development, there will be more traffic than the tiny bit that is there now. You face the difficult job of finding the balance of what's right for the community, and I understand that's difficult. But I believe that Kensington is the best partner that you're going to be able to find for the community and to move us forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Catherine Lindner, who will be followed by Jeff Barini and then Kristen White.
Good evening, and I thank you for your service. I am here also in support of Kensington School. I am a 26-year resident of the 6th Ward. I live on Hartsel, just a few blocks west. I'm not a member of Unity, but the situation piqued my interest because I'm an active member of my Catholic parish, and I'm empathetic with their situation and the declining enrollment in the church. And so when I looked to what solutions and what might go in there, I was really impressed with Kensington and what it can offer to the community, as well as being added back to the tax rolls. I encourage you to vote yes.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Jeff Barini, who will be followed by Kristen White and then Eric Passett.
Good evening. Jeff Barini, 2nd Ward. I urge you to not proceed with issuing the 2026 general obligation bonds outlined on tonight's agenda. The bulk of this $37 million request is to pay for projects already completed, started, and mostly paid for in 2024 and 25. In those years, City Council directed staff to pay for those projects from our excess reserves. These are tens of millions of resident dollars over and above our required reserves. These bonds requested tonight would circumvent that original direction and now reimburse our excess reserves with borrowed money. It's not necessary as we still have ample excess reserves. It might also help to remember that currently nearly all the money we get from property taxes goes to pay for debt service on the money that we already owe. Let's not saddle residents with any more debt if we can. Finally, budgeting is about looking forward, planning for what's ahead and what we want to accomplish. Thinking of all the maintenance on which we are behind on all of our buildings, our sidewalks, and our parks, let's look ahead to what we need to do and need to fund and not be borrowing money for work that's already completed or underway. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Kristen White, who will be followed by Eric Passett and then Katie McDonald.
Good evening. I'm Kristen White, the Senior Director of Policy and Advocacy at Connections for the Homeless, a 23-year resident of Evanston and currently a renter living in the 2nd Ward of Evanston. I'm here to encourage you to vote unanimously tonight to suspend council rules for introduction and action on amending the landlord-tenant regulations. Almost half of Evanston residents are renters, and except for securing their own legal counsel, they have no recourse against illegal landlord retaliation, nor does the city. It seems like the legal remedy currently available to renters is reasonable until you look at the numbers. According to the National Coalition to a Civil Right to Counsel, a recent study shows that 83% of landlords secure legal counsel and only 4% of renters do when there are tenancy issues. Let's look at some local numbers. In the 1st Ward, almost 60% of residents are renters. In the 8th Ward, almost 54% of residents are renters. In the 7th Ward, almost 32% of residents are renters. And in the 4th Ward, almost 53% of residents are renters. Almost half of Evanston are renters. Each of you has a large constituency of renters in your wards. This means you have many constituents in the city that currently have no tools to protect themselves in the event they are retaliated against by a landlord. And many of these constituents do not have the resources to seek legal counsel. The financial penalties presented in the ordinance amendment are reasonable and will incentivize increased housing stability for your constituents. Do the right thing and stand for the interests of renters, which for almost half of council is the majority of your voters. If you unanimously vote in favor of this action tonight, you will bring more housing stability to the over 40% of Evanston renters who would otherwise have no reasonable recourse when faced with retaliation.
Thank you very much.
Protect your many voters who are renters and vote yes.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Eric Passett, who will be followed by Katie McDonald, and then Kurt Condra.
Hi, I'm Eric Passett. I'm the owner of North Shore Apartments and Condos, and if you guys will, probably don't believe it, but I'm here in favor of Ordinance 30-0-26. Alderman Newsman reached out to me today and I read the ordinance, and I also attended the last RLTL meeting, and no landlord who's actually upstanding or honest is in favor of what Quad-L is doing to their tenants. So I have no problem. We have no problem with this as long as it's used in the context that it's being presented, which I can't see why it wouldn't be. But we don't retaliate towards our tenants, nor do we do any things that are described here. So, not to say any more, but we're in favor of it.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Katie McDonald, who'll be followed by Kurt Condra, and then Lane Howard.
Hi, I'm Katie McDonald, and I am a Ward 3 resident, and I'm a member of the Quadrell Tenants Union. As I encountered Quadrell's poor business practices, I was relieved to learn that Evanston had a strong RLTO, which had recently been revised. So we, the Quadrell Tenants Union, had the law on our side. Because of this, I naively thought that the negotiations with Quadrell would be pretty straightforward. Instead, for months, they have ignored the tenants union during negotiations. They have ignored letters from the city of Evanston to comply with the RLTO. And to this day, I continue to pay illegal fees. The fact that my hard-earned money is lining their pockets makes me so angry. The fact that they think the laws don't apply to them is an insult to Evanston residents, and it's an insult to you, Evanston lawmakers. The current RLTO is a good policy. However, it has just gone through a stress test. Through the experiences of the tenants union, we have unfortunately learned that Quadrell is happy to ignore it. We've learned complaints from residents, community rallies, strongly worded letters from our attorney and the city's attorney are not enough for Quadrell to simply follow the law. If we don't do something, I guarantee you Quadrell isn't the only landlord who will choose to ignore it. For this reason, I urge you to adopt the common sense revisions to the RLTO that are under consideration tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Kurt Condra, who will be followed by Lane Howard, and then Amy Miner.
Hi, I'm Reverend Kurt Condra, Senior Minister at Unity on the North Shore. I've been there since 2010. When the church began a difficult discernment process to release the property that we've held for 60 years. We set an intention that we would prayerfully hold that the highest and best was going to be unfolding not only for our congregation, but for the local neighbors and for the Evanston community and beyond. And as difficult as that decision was, when Kensington came forward as a buyer, it really provided us with a sense of relief, a sense of like this prayer has been answered. The values that Kensington holds are very similar to those that we do, to be able to equip and educate and empower people to live meaningful and fulfilling lives. And so just from that standpoint, in terms of the prayerful energy that we've been able to invest in the intention that we hold for even better outcome to unfold, I ask you to support the sale to Kensington.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Lane Howard, who will be followed by Amy Minor, and then John Cavalier.
Hi, I'm Lane Howard. I am a resident of the 6th Ward, and I live very close to where the Kensington development will be going in. My kids bike through that area often, and apparently it's an intersection I should be more concerned about, but we have lived there since they were 9 and 13. And they're of Little Island age, I guess. They go to Little Island routinely for lunch. They navigate that intersection on their own, and I've never had a qualm about sending them out into that. I don't have, I did initially have concerns when Kensington when I first became aware of it. Through this process, I think they have taken the concerns of the residents in the neighborhood very seriously and addressed it and tried to give us the information that we've wanted and change what we've asked for. I understand not everyone is happy with this, but I do think it's a really incredible opportunity to have a new neighbor in the neighborhood who will provide a new usage, keep the property up to beautiful standards if we can judge by any of their other properties, and to get a good chunk of property back onto the tax rolls of Evanston. So I would urge you I know there's a lot of neighbors out there who can't be there. We all have little kids. We're running around. I felt like it was important to have some yes votes down here, so I came down and stayed for this meeting as well. I would urge you to vote yes on the Kensington School. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Amy Minor, who will be followed by John Cavalier, and then Alyssa Foster.
Hi, my name is Amy Minor. I've lived in the Hillside neighborhood for 10 plus years. I have 3 small children who have grown up there. Just by nature of how our neighborhood is, we don't have sidewalks. Our children are playing in the streets, which I understand makes people on Zoom uncomfortable. But this is just the reality of our neighborhood. We have always felt very safe. I'm in favor of the Kensington School, as I believe that the traffic pattern is going to continue to be the safest for our kids and the families who live in our neighborhood. I worry that if the property goes up for sale again, it may be purchased by something where traffic will be heavy on weekends and nights, something that the school won't really cause. We've also heard that the church vetted several different buyers and chose Kensington as the lowest, having the lowest direct impact on the neighborhood. For that reason, I encourage a yes vote to Kensington School. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is John Cavalier, who will be followed by Alyssa Foster, and then Sari Caddison.
Hello. My name is John Cavalier, 6th Ward, live across the street from Kensington. I am pro-Kensington. I've lived there for 27 years. I've raised 3 boys there, now a beautiful little girl. I've dealt with the 24-inch sidewalks with no parkway as a buffer this whole time, and still not getting hung up on the traffic issues many have brought up. I still think the traffic a few hours a day is much more manageable compared to what could be split into 12 possible parcels, 24 hours a day. Again, I support all the time and information, all that have in favor have brought forth today, and I really wish this would move on and get through faster so I would have a chance to enroll my daughter. So please vote yes.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Alyssa Foster, who will be followed by Sari Caddison and then Larry Raffel.
Thank you so much. I won't belabor the many points that have already been made in support of Kensington, but my name is Alyssa Foster. I'm a Evanston resident in the 5th Ward, and I am a member of the Unity Church. I've watched this community prayerfully wait and go through every phase of trying to sell their property while the building falls apart around us. I can attest to the fact that the developer has changed the design several times in response to requests, has come up with multiple traffic studies to try to assure people of what is going to happen in the future and to make sure that the neighborhood remains safe. I feel at this point that we're being held up, almost being held hostage by worries about an intersection that is not ours to design. It's not the developers to redesign, but it's something that is outside of our control. As you've heard, we've had other offers, and the idea of a single building that houses little children for preschool was the best future that we could see for our land usage. I know that the neighbors might be afraid of what might come, but the fact is that we can only sell to the buyers that come forward. There may be some imaginary, wonderful buyer there in their minds, but we can only deal with what is in front of us. And we've been waiting for 7 years to be able to find our next church home. I don't know many people who, if they were held up in their personal home from selling their home, would be able to have that much grace and confidence in the process, and we do. So please vote in support of the sale.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Sarah Caddison, who will be followed by Larry Raffel, and then Craig McClure. Looks like Ms. Caddison has left. We'll move ahead then with Larry Raffel, who will be followed by Craig McClure, and then Amy Howenstein.
Well, good evening. My name is Larry Raffel, and I live across the street from the Unity Church, and I'm here to speak in opposition to this project. There are lots of problems with this project, and despite what you've heard today, you can't approve something based on somebody needing to sell something or a developer that only meets with people who approve their project. There are serious problems here, and that intersection is bad. I was personally hit by a car at that intersection, sending my family to the hospital. And the building itself is 5,000 square feet larger and 1 story taller than Park Ridge. So to compare this building to Park Ridge is really unfair. If they wanted to compare it to Park Ridge, why isn't it the same size as Park Ridge? Why is it 1 story and 15,000 square feet? And to suggest that people are going to use the driveways the way they're designed, it's absurd because IDOT has refused to give them a full access on Grosse Pointe Road. So we've got a lot of ins and outs all over the neighborhood, very, very confusing. So there's a lot of red flags with this project. And I'm a landscape architect and planner myself, and consulting municipalities and park districts on these type of projects. The developers only met with the neighbors who approve it. They've never met with us. I've never seen any particular changes to support some of these suggestions that we've made. So I feel they've really tried to steamroll this project over the neighborhood with a total disregard of the residents, at least the ones who question what they're doing. So I would ask you sincerely to read the email I sent you, please. There's a lot of good information in that, and respectfully deny this project. So thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Craig McClure, who will be followed by Amy Howenstein, and then Bill Russo.
Well, I get to speak twice tonight. Heard some interesting perspectives in the planning and development, and so I'm Craig McClure. I live on Princeton. I'm in the 2500 block around the corner, and I'm asking you to vote no. Some of the support you're hearing about is actually fear on the part of some, like, oh my God, they can build like all these terrible things. The concern my husband and I have is traffic in the community. And I'm not talking about the intersection, I'm talking about in the community because like Terry said, or Larry, I'm sorry, when the only way I can get to Kensington is coming south on Grosse Pointe, if I'm coming from the south or from the west, I'm going to come through the neighborhood and I'm going to drop my children off on Central. And I saw this in LaGrange when I went there on a Friday afternoon and sat there for an hour. Some of you hopefully saw my YouTube video that I emailed in. So overall, my husband and I feel like we can do better. I get that the church needs to sell. I totally get that, but we can do better. Asking you to vote no. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Amy Hauenstein, who'll be followed by Bill Russo, and then Peter Ruthan.
Good evening. My name is Amy Hauenstein. I live within 1,000 feet right across the street from the current Unity Church. I'm speaking in opposition of this proposal, not a general objection to childcare or even a business, but as a planning concern about placing a high-intensity commercial use at this scale. We've asked and asked, why does it have to be this big, on this parcel? At more than 19,000 square feet, the proposed facility significantly exceeds what's required for comparable operations, their own and others in Evanston. It introduces impacts like traffic, parking, and environmental degrading that are not consistent with a residential corridor lacking sidewalks. Our houses are 1,300 square feet on average. This is monstrosity compared to that. And our neighborhood is designed for low-scale use of our streets. Equally important, this proposal is based on incomplete operational assumptions. I'm an education scholar at Northwestern. Real-world data from comparable daycares in Evanston and all of your wards shows that staffing, parking, and traffic have been materially understated by this proposal. Planning decisions depend on accurate inputs, and here those inputs are not reliable. I want to underscore a point raised by Evanston's early childhood providers who I reached out to. They emailed you. As outlined in their community letter, the issue is not access to childcare in the abstract, but the stability and balance of the existing ecosystem. This is not a gap-filling proposal. It's a market disruption one. This site, my last point, this site represents a rare opportunity to align Evanston's housing and planning priorities. But once a high-intensity commercial use is built, that opportunity is lost.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Bill Russo, who'll be followed by Peter Ruthan, and then Elisha Madison.
Hello, my name is Bill Russo. I'm here asking you to oppose the Kensington project. I live directly across the street. I know this project has been declined by the council previously, and I don't think the plan has changed that much, so I don't think you should change your mind. I'm very concerned about the traffic. I'm also concerned about the impact on the sewer system that was built for a small single-family neighborhood, getting this intense use. Additionally, I'm worried about the number of mature trees that are being taken down and the lack of the replacement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Peter Ruthan, who will be followed by Elisha Madison, and then Ellen Rigsby.
Hi, my name is Peter Rotan. I'm the president of First Williamsburg Corporation, which is a 12-unit co-op, which is directly south of the proposed development. I raised my children there from 2010, and we have a lot of experience with just the way it feels in that area. And one thing I want to do to try to give a real-world idea about what will be happening on Central Street is that feeding into Central Street are it can be Grosse Pointe Road, also Crawford. And drivers can be driving 35 or 40 miles an hour on those streets and then turn into this very quiet street in which there are the following kinds of things. A mother or father pushing a stroller with a dog on the street because the sidewalk is about the size of this lectern, is about the width of this lectern on one side. On the other side, there isn't any at all. So when drivers are coming in there and they may be distracted, it's just not safe. And I'm concerned about that. In addition, I think I want to say we're opposed to the development, but we are in support of something else. We're in support of the church having a robust process of selection of an appropriate development there that would be something that is aligned with community concerns. And the way that that would be built is by engaging the community seriously. Unfortunately, the church did not engage the community seriously. I want to say one more thing. The changes in the proposal, which we learned about, I'll say this quickly. The changes in the proposal would make it so that even with changes, the access with emergency vehicles to First Williamsburg Corporation could make it so that the emergency vehicles would have to pick up people if there was an emergency on Grosse Pointe Road. I can't imagine the danger of having an emergency load into an ambulance on Grosse Pointe Road. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Elisha Madison, who will be followed by Ellen Rigsby.
Yes. Good evening, and thank you all for this chance to speak tonight. We appreciate all that you all do, and in the spirit of everyone getting home at a reasonable time, we're going to pass on our time tonight. Thank you. Thank you.
That, in style, concludes the folks who signed up in person to speak in person portion of tonight's public comment. We now move on to those who signed up online to speak in person, beginning with Dan Ashurst, who'll be followed by George Stevenson, and then Leslie Brown.
Good evening. Thank you very much. My name is Dan Ashurst, and I'm the Executive Director of Fair Vote Illinois, which advocates for ranked choice voting in the state of Illinois. In the interest of time, I passed out a letter just to quickly say what I wanted to say. I just wanted to thank you all for advocating for ranked choice voting as a city and voting to adopt ranked choice voting. I've been going to Springfield 2 to 3 days a week to try and get legislation that would help smoothen the implementation of this referendum. So I had a community letter QR code there on that letter if you're interested in co-signing on. Thank you very much, and excuse my intrusion on this excellent debate.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is George Stevenson, who'll be followed by Leslie Brown, and then Malaya Geertsma.
I thank you all again for your patience and your time. Not to beat the traffic horse to death, but it could be the critical issue, I think, in this whole decision, because it's already bad and it, I think, could only get worse. The problem is that intersection is already busy, confusing, and dangerous. You've got Central Street, Ridge Road, Crawford, and Grosse Pointe Road all converging around a hot dog business in the center. When you're on Central Street facing west, you can see 5 different traffic lights staring at you out of the 20 in that intersection. In addition to Hot Dog Island, you have CVS, Subway, a Cleaners, and a Starbucks, which has long lines in the morning, plus 2 professional buildings, a condominium complex, which runs from Central to Old Orchard Road, 2 smaller apartment buildings, and a rehab center. Then there's traffic going to and from Edens Highway and to and from Old Orchard Shopping Center. Add to that mix 2 fire departments and a hospital on Central Street with vehicles including ambulance and buses, often racing down Central to Grosse Pointe Road, all this pouring into that one intersection. Then add a line of cars entering the proposed daycare center, slowing down for right turns every day, and you've got a mess for the city and the residents, a situation ripe for accidents. There were 14 to 16 accidents reported in 2025. That's 2 a month, in addition to those that were not reported. So it's busy, dangerous, and confusing. And because of this, I urge you to vote no to the proposed Kensington Daycare Center. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Leslie Brown, who will be followed by Malaya Geertsma, and then Jonah Karsh.
Hi, good evening. My name is Leslie Brown, and I live directly across the street from the proposed planned development for Kensington, and I'm here in opposition to this proposal. There are many reasons, but I'm going to just focus on 2. And I know there's been a lot of talk about the traffic, but I'd like to add some more context. That intersection is one of the city's most problematic intersections. IDOT has flagged it in several safety reports. Evanston's own Central Street corridor plan identified this area as a high-volume, complex arterial junction with short stacking areas, which increase the likelihood of rear and turning collisions. And historical crash data analyzed by the Central Street Neighbors Association cited this intersection as one of the more dangerous in Illinois. Despite what the traffic study says in the proposal, this is not an intersection nor a neighborhood that can withstand the traffic this business brings. Members of the Land Use Commission repeatedly brought up these traffic issues, but left it to council to sort out. This simply cannot be a plan of building it, breaking it, and then figuring it out. The 20,000 square foot proposed building requires at least half a dozen variances to make this work, while their other buildings are 5,000 square foot less in the suburbs. There's no reason for this to be this big. And despite repeated requests for compromise in size or to reach out, even in 2021, I reached out to Reverend Condra and was told that he can't meet with us on advice of council. I ask you, why should we bend over backwards to provide a significant number of variances? Why should we negatively impact our neighbors and our children to accommodate such a large business? And why are we considering a school/daycare when we are closing our own public schools? I want the church to move. I want them to sell. I'm open to change. This just isn't it. Please reject it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Malia Giertzma, who will be followed by Jonah Karsh.
Good evening. My name is Malia Gertzma, and I am a 7th Ward resident and professional with several decades of experience in environmental, land use, and civil rights law and policy. Through my research and with the critical support of the Shorefront Legacy Center and Evanston Library staff, I've identified numerous pieces of historic evidence that connect Black displacement to establishment of Willard Elementary School in the late 1910s through 1920s that are not included in the staff report nor reflected in its conclusion that Black displacement did not occur. This is the history that needs to be more fully developed and recognized as City Council decides whether and how to landmark the Willard School. I thus support City Council taking time to assemble more of the historic record to ensure both an accurate accounting and a decision grounded in it. I also strongly encourage City Council to obtain written guidance from corporate counsel on council's options for making a decision on the proposed landmarking, including on what grounds it may reject landmark status. To date, in my experience, all instruction to the Commission and City Council at public meetings and during deliberation have been about whether and how to approve the proposal, with little to no discussion of grounds for rejecting. As we consider pressing issues around schools and housing in our community, how our representatives handle this proposed landmarking will both send a message to the full community and have real consequences for the future uses of this site. I urge City Council to take the time to make the right decision. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Jonah Karsh.
Good evening. My name is Jonah Karsh. I work with the Metropolitan Tenants Organization and have been assisting tenants in buildings owned by Quadrell Realty Group and North Park Ventures for the past year. Happy to report that as of today, there is now a 4th building on Hampton Parkway in the 7th Ward that has gone public with their union with 20 signatures on their letter. And as we're talking about RLTO fines tonight, I just thought it would be useful to talk about what we're actually hoping to find people for. And I couldn't get through everything in a minute and a half if I wanted to. But here is a non-exhaustive list of some of what Quadrell and North Park Ventures have been doing. So the RLTO, Residential Landlord Tenant Ordinance, prohibits landlords from including provisions that limit the landlord's liability. And Quadrell and North Park's leases contain at least 7 such provisions. One of the most egregious reads, quote, "The landlord shall in no event be liable to the resident for any failure to provide any utilities." When the tenant pays for heat, the RLTO requires landlords to disclose annual heating costs to the unit for the last 12 months in their leases. Quadrell and North Park do not do this. And the next couple are doozies. I want to talk about illegal fees because the RLTO prohibits fees in excess of the reasonable cost of the associated expense. To this day, in many of their units, Quadrell and North Park are charging tenants $17 a month for a renter's insurance policy that costs them $10.87 a month, $30 to $40 a month for a keyless entry system that costs them $7 per month, and $70 to $80 a month for internet that costs them $28.67 per month. They have stolen hundreds of thousands of dollars from Evanston residents, and that's why we need these fines in the RLTO. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This concludes the in-person portion of public comment for the evening, unless I messed up. Is there anyone in the room who believes they signed up?
Mayor Biss, I had signed up.
Yes, again, just to reiterate, this concludes the in-person portion of public comment, unless I screwed up. Is there anybody in the room who I missed? Okay, great. In that case, we move on to the online portion of public comment, which will begin with Aaron Bornstein, who will be followed by Daniel Skirmerhorn, and then Dominic Vaz. Is Aaron Bornstein able to unmute?
Can you hear me now? I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yep, did I just get in? Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hi. Yes, my name is Aaron Bornstein. I am the small housing provider in Evanston and president of the Evanston-based North Suburban Housing Provider Group. I speak today asking you to not amend the RLTO today on an emergency basis to impose more fines on landlords. Instead, any proposed changes to the RLTO should be sent to the proper committee where they can be reviewed and discussed through appropriate channels. So about 18 months ago, after months of discussion and committee meetings and so on, this council amended its RLTO on nearly 20 different issues, mostly in an anti-landlord fashion. Now, just a short time later, council is once again being asked to find yet another way to impose fines and raise costs on landlords. In many cases, the people asking for these new powers then act surprised when rent in town goes through the roof as these new costs are passed on to tenants. Let's not rush into anything. The landlord-tenant ordinance governs leases. A lease is a private business contract between two consenting parties. We are not aware of any other municipality that fines a housing provider for violating their landlord-tenant ordinance. Not Chicago, not Skokie, not any other suburb that we're familiar with. This is not something the city should put themselves in the middle of. Usually there are two sides to every story. On what basis will the city intervene in these private disputes? What investigation will the city do to determine who is right and who is wrong? Who will pay for the city's resources to investigate these matters? If it turns out the tenant is to blame in a situation, will the tenant be fined? All these are issues which must be considered and discussed and cannot be done on an emergency basis. To the extent the Quadrell situation is being used to justify these permanent changes to Evanston law, this is not something that one example should be used to impose on everybody. The current RLTO allows the city to sue Quadrell. Okay, thank you. In short, please take your time on this and send it to committee so we can do our work. There's no emergency.
Thank you very much.
Okay, bye-bye.
The next speaker is Daniel Skirmerhorn, who will be followed by Dominic Vaz, and then Brian Mahoney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate the opportunity to speak for your group. And I'd like to echo a couple of comments made by a few folks who have spoken before me. First of all, I echo what Eric Passett had to say. In no way are we in favor of activities that are in violation of the landlord-tenant ordinance in terms of charges to tenants or improper fees, et cetera. However, I'm not sure that this proposal achieves what I think you're trying to achieve. I think you do have a section in the ordinance 5392 that allows for the city to bring a civil action in case where these situations are repeated and more than just an isolated practice. And it sounds like from what's being described that that's the situation that you're in. So I would agree that something seems to need to be done to ferret out whether or not these allegations are true or not. But I also agree with what Aaron was saying, and that is let's not rush into making a change to the ordinance without thinking it all the way through, as was done over the last couple of years with the changes that were made to the residential landlord-tenant ordinance. So while I agree with the objective to take care of a situation where you've got a non-compliant landlord, I don't know that changing the entire ordinance is the way to resolve that matter. But thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Dominic Vaz, who will be followed by Brian Mahoney, and then Shreem Richivanis.
Good evening, everybody. I'll be brief. I would love to draw folks' attention, council members, Mr. Mayor, Manager Stowe, to an email that I sent to everyone about 5 o'clock today. Open Communities, I'm here representing our group. We've been serving the region for 50 plus years, and we were proud to be one of the organizations that fought for these really meaningful reforms to the RLTO a couple of years ago. And I think, we speak with some particular experience in the area of enforcement, kind of day in, day out, outside of advocating for public policy. My job is to help folks exercise their fair housing rights when they've experienced some kind of discrimination. So I get to see sort of every day, even with administrative avenues in the civil rights context, where folks can file a complaint, with IDHR, the Illinois Department of Human Rights, or there's a county body that does similar work. There's a huge gap between the prohibitions and protections that exist on a page and the force of law that actually gives those meaning. In the landlord-tenant context, it's frankly even more difficult because there's generally not these administrative pathways. In Evanston, outside of the corporation council filing suit or an individual filing suit in court, and we know there's huge barriers that others spoke about to accessing those venues. This is really the only kind of top-down measure that could be enacted, really, put back into the ordinance to allow the city to levy fines when there's, clear violations of the ordinance. So I just strongly consider council to vote yes on this tonight to suspend the rules in order to get that done. And we should see this as part of the broader process of protecting tenants from exploitation, retaliation, and displacement in our city. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Brian Mahoney, and who will be followed by Shreem Richivanis.
Thank you, council members. I've submitted written comments that came in this afternoon. I would ask the council members to try and read them if you could. I'd like to not repeat what people said about the traffic safety, which is a tremendous issue. And I would just submit it's manifest. Anyone takes an honest look that it's a dangerous intersection. Beyond the congestion, it's actually dangerous, and this will make it much worse. I would ask the committee in this regard to not buy into the fiction that rush hour is something that does not exist at Kensington schools. There is rush hour, and I believe someone else submitted data about other schools that showed rush hour is alive and well at Kensington like everywhere else in the world. There's a procedural deficiency here. The applicant does not own the property. His application is not in compliance with Evanston's rules. I've raised this issue with the council for the city about 2 or 3 years ago, and again last year. There's been no substantive response because there is no answer. It's simply deficient. And as the executive of my sister's state, I may have to take legal action for a writ of mandamus if the city doesn't follow its own rules. Then finally, if the application were approved, it would result in a diminution of value of the co-op shares as well as many other residences. And that diminution of value would arguably constitute a takings, and we'd have to again look at legal recourse for that. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time and attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Shreem Richivanis.
Thank you so much. I will keep it brief. My name is Shreem Richivanis, Associate Director of Advocacy at Connections for the Homeless, who served 3,200 Evanstonians experiencing homelessness or housing instability in fiscal year 2025. I'm speaking in support of the amendment to the retaliatory conduct civil actions of the landlord and tenant regulations. Right now, tenants have no realistic path to address violations, and requiring folks to pursue legal action on their own is not a meaningful form of enforcement. This amendment gives the city a practical tool to hold landlords, mom and pops, and corporations accountable when they repeatedly or intentionally violate the law. Let's uplift standards, and protection for both tenants and landlords who operate with integrity. And at its core, this is truly about basic accountability, and laws only work when there's enforcement. And so we urge you to support this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That concludes public comment for the evening. We now will move on to the part of the program where people remove items from the consent agenda. The first item on the consent agenda is the approval of the minutes of the March 9th, 2026 council meeting. Councilmember Kelly, would you care to read the ANPW portion of the consent agenda?
Okay, item A1, approval of the City of Evanston payroll bills list and credit card. Item A2, approval of BMO Harris Amazon credit card activity. That one we're removing, okay.
Do whatever we want. I think
Pull it out as I read
if
it, I'd
people
say.
do it in the moment, that's great. But if you want to hold it for a great reveal later, that's cool too.
A2?
I think A2 is going to be pulled though. I think we've driven that one into the ground.
Okay, A3, Resolution 21R26, authorizing the city manager to execute an MOU with the School District 65. Item A4, Resolution 26R26, approval of contract award with Fowler Services for demolition of city-owned property located at 727 to 39 Howard.
I'd like to pull that one, please.
Okay, A4 has been pulled. Item A5, a resolution awarding a contract with Cavolit Construction Company for the annual dredging of the Church Street boat ramp. Item A6, Resolution 29R26, authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement with Joel Kennedy Construction for the 2026 Church Street water main improvements. Item A7, Resolution 30R26, approval of contract award with Beridis Incorporated for the Cartwright Park and Fitzsimmons Park renovations project.
I'd like to pull that one, please.
Okay, pulling A7. Item A8, approval of sole source contract with the Gree Hill North America for a smart tree inventory of the city's public trees.
I'd like to pull that, please.
Okay, pulling A8. A9, Resolution 32R26, approval of the 2026 calendar of special events.
I need to pull that one.
Okay, pulling A9. Item A10, Resolution 33R26, approval of a contract for security services at various City of Evanston facilities with Benford Protection Group. Item A11, Resolution 34R26, approval for the purchase of one piece of fleet equipment for Public Works Agency use. Item A12, Resolution 35R26, proposed private side lead service line replacement incentive pilot program. I'll pull that one. Item A13, Resolution 36R26, approval of contract with Suburban Tree Consortium for the purchase of trees and planting services for spring of 2026. I will pull that one, A13. A14, Resolution 37R26, approval of one-year contract with Builders Asphalt for the purchase of hot mix asphalt. Item A15, resolution authorizing the city manager to execute amendment number 1 to the agreement with Trans US Incorporated for Prieto HVAC electrification. A15's been pulled. And A16, resolution 40R26, approval of a one-year single-source renewal service agreement with Tyler Technologies for financial and human resources, payroll processing, New World ERP software. A17, Resolution 41R26, approval of single-source purchase of data center networking infrastructure equipment and professional services from Heartland Business Systems. Item A18, Ordinance 26026, to approve the construction of local improvement known as Evanston Special Assessment Number 1535. And item A19, yes. Did I skip something? I'm sorry. Certainly. A18 is Ordinance 26-026 to approve the construction of a local, am I reading the wrong?
Yeah, sorry.
So sorry, hold on. Okay.
Well, you were reading the wrong agenda, but also it's possible, the numbering changed throughout the day as the agenda was updated, so it's possible that different people have different numberings, but everything up, all the printouts that were handed out up here should be current.
Okay.
And so Councilmember Kelly, as long as you use the gold sheet.
Okay. Okay. So A19 is on, I'm sorry, on let me go back to A18. A18 is the construction, A18, construction of a local improvement known as Evanston Special Assessment Number 1535. Item A. Okay, I'm going by the council one now instead of, okay. Now A9, so I'm going on the council. Okay. A19, ordinance 27026 to approve the construction of a local improvement known as Evanston Special Assessment Number 1536. And item A20, ordinance 28-026 to approve the construction of a local improvement known as Evanston Special Assessment 1537. A21, ordinance 15026, amending City Code 8492, Title 8, Chapter 27, franchise haulers. And item A22, ordinance 24026, amending City Code Section 10-11-4, Schedule 4, one-way streets to include portions of various streets during District 65 school drop-off and pickup hours. Okay.
So the items that have been pulled are the following 8.
Can I
Yeah.
request a brief timeout?
Yeah.
Only the order changed
Correct.
between this version and this version?
Correct.
Got it. Thank you.
So,
Hold on. We're on top of everything else. This is very exciting. We also are having a technical issue with the broadcast. So we're going to take a 5-minute break. No, we are not having a technical issue with the broadcast. We've solved our technical issue with the broadcast because we're back. The technical wizardry has been achieved. Thank you, Anderson. False alarm. Everything's great. Hooray.
Thank you.
Applause for Anderson, please. Never have I seen someone flee a room full of applause so quickly. The items that were flagged are the following 8: A2, A4, A7, A8, A9, A12, A13, and A15. Okay. Now for the Planning and Development agenda, Councilmember Davis.
Sure. PD1 Ordinance 13026, granting a special use permit for a planned development and special use permit for a child daycare center at 3434 Central Street in the R2 Single Family Residential District. That needs to be pulled. And PD2 Ordinance 20026, approving an amendment to Ordinance 59024 and major variations for 1611 Church Street in the R4 General Residential District. Pull that as well. And
did someone say pull PD2?
Oh,
no, he just said keep reading.
No. Okay. Thought you meant pull one more. No, okay. Sorry. And then PD3 Ordinance 23026, designating the property located at 2700 Hurd Avenue, commonly known as Francis Willard Elementary School, in Evanston landmark. Please, can you pull that? Yeah.
So items PD1 and PD3 have been pulled. Now on the Rules Committee agenda, Councilmember Burns. You're R1.
For introduction, R1 Ordinance 29026, an ordinance amending Evanston City Code Title 2, Chapter 9, Emergency Telephone System Board.
Okay. Finance and Budget, Councilmember Rogers.
Thank you. For introduction, FB1 Ordinance 25026, authorizing the 2026 general obligation bond issues for $37 million.
oh,
No.
I'll pull that.
HCDC, Councilmember Burns.
For action, approval of 2025 Consolidated Annual Performance Evaluation Report for the city's Community Development Block Grant, Emergency Solutions Grant, and Home Investment Partnerships Grant.
Could you please pull that one?
And finally, AP1 is Resolution 39-R-26, which contains a number of appointments and reappointments to boards, committees, and commissions. So that was exciting. 12 items were pulled, and just to recapitulate, A2, A4, A7, A8, A9, A12, A13, A15, PD1, PD3, FB1, and HCDC1. If there's nothing else that folks want pulled, I would entertain a motion.
I'll move approval of the consent agenda minus the following items. A2, A4, A7, A8, A9, A12, A13, A15, PD1, PD3, FB1, and HCDC1.
No, second.
Councilmember Hadakatis moves the adoption of the consent agenda with the following 12 exceptions: A2, A4, A7, A8, A9, A12, A13, A15, PD1, PD3, FP1, and HCDC1. Councilmember Rogers seconds. Would the clerk please take the roll?
Councilmember Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember Rogers.
Aye.
Councilmember Hadakatis.
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly.
Aye.
Councilmember Harris. Aye. Councilmember Isles.
Aye.
Councilmember Newsma.
Aye.
Councilmember Burns.
Aye.
Councilmember Sufferton.
With 9 voting in favor and none voting against, the motion carries, and the consent agenda with the 12 items previously enumerated is adopted. Now on item SP1, Councilmember Burns, do you have a motion? SP1. This is the Wesley issue.
Yeah, I make a motion to actually table SP1 until the first meeting in April.
Councilmember Burns moves to table item SP1 to the first regular City Council meeting in April 2026. Councilmember Harris seconds. This is a non-debatable motion. Will the clerk please take the roll?
Councilmember Davis. Councilmember Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember Rogers.
Aye.
Councilmember Hadakatis.
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly. Councilmember Harris. Councilmember Isles.
Aye.
Councilmember Newsma.
Aye.
Councilmember Burns.
Aye.
Councilmember Sufferton.
With 9 voting in favor and none voting against, the motion carries, and this item will appear on the first regular April 2026 meeting. Now on item SP2, Councilmember Isles, do you have a motion?
I do. I move SP2 Ordinance 30.
Hold on. Do you want to make a motion to suspend the rules?
Oh, yes. I make a motion to suspend the rules for introduction and action tonight for, do I have to go through the whole thing?
No.
No? Okay, great.
I think there was a second, but
I'll second.
Okay. Councilmember Isles moves to suspend Rule 20.1 so that Ordinance 30-0-26 may be introduced and acted upon in a single action this evening. Councilmember Harris seconds. Is there any discussion on the motion to suspend the rules? Seeing none, would the clerk please take the roll on the motion to suspend the rules?
Councilmember Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember Rogers.
No.
Councilmember Hadakatis.
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly. No. Councilmember Harris. Councilmember Isles.
Aye.
Councilmember Newsma.
Aye.
Councilmember Burns.
Aye.
Councilmember Sufferton.
With 6 voting in favor and 3 voting against, the motion fails to receive the required unanimous support, and therefore the rule is not suspended. Councilmember Isles, your light is on.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to introduce Ordinance 30-0-26.
Councilmember Isles moves to introduce Ordinance 30-0-26. Councilmember Harris seconds. Councilmember Burns.
Councilmember Isles, do you have your light on as well? Because you can go first. I'll go after you.
Okay.
Councilmember Isles, followed by Burns.
Thank you, Councilmember Burns. The reason I wanted to put this through in one night is because it's been urgent for the tenants in the Third Ward for months now, and a number of them were threatened with non-renewal from Quadrell. I want to start by saying how impressed I am that the tenants union is formed and advocated for its rights. I share their frustration that despite multiple efforts, there has not been a conclusion. But I want to be clear. I put forward this ordinance not as a change for one bad actor, but one bad actor has shown us that there's a need for change. The ordinance is not worth the paper it's printed on if we can't or won't enforce it. Civil actions is the current remedy, but it's not realistically available to most tenants. And I sincerely hope that the city never collects a single fine. We're not looking for increased revenue. Responsible landlords will be fine. This is more of a carrot and a stick thing. Enforcement should be discretionary. I expect the city to go after egregious, flagrant, repeat offenders, not first-time offenders, and not small landlords.
Councilmember Burns, followed by Hadakatis.
I think one of the comments around this, so supportive, I think we need enforcement is important. I think fines are a part of that. I will say something I heard during public comment that I believe is legitimate, is that unless we have reached out to landlords that could be impacted by this, but I think it is important that we get some feedback from them. Whether it's landlord licensing, whether it's just cause, RLTO, I feel like the city has made an effort these last several years to make sure that before we make any substantial changes that we're engaging with all stakeholders. And in this case, it would be landlords would be a part of that group. I don't necessarily think this needs to go through ACDC. I think it probably should have. I agree that we shouldn't pick and choose when we want to involve all stakeholder groups. I think we need to understand how and where we want to get that feedback and be consistent in it. I understand this is an urgent matter and that'll happen sometimes, or maybe we have to treat some things differently. So, for that reason, this is just for introduction, at least at this point. I'm happy to support it, but I would hope in between meetings that there's a serious effort made to try to get feedback from landlords. But other than that, I support the direction and what we're trying to do here. Thank you.
Councilmember Hadakatis, Nusma Rogers.
I think this is incredibly important that we move forward with this. We have some bad actors in the community that think just because they have a lot of money and a lot of legal power that they're going to ignore the rules, and it's extremely frustrating, especially given the amount of care and time we've put into the RLTO to make sure that we are trying to do the best for all sides. I don't see this as a major change because we are not changing the rules. We are just adding a penalty. And I like that it's discretionary because then, in this case, Quadrell is ignoring the rules and it's pretty egregious. And I hope that we will move as quickly as we can on this issue. Thanks.
Councilmember Nusma Rogers Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to support this with one motion to help clarify exactly what we're talking about here. In our memo, it was a little bit unclear whether the penalties were meant to apply to the entire chapter, Title V, Chapter 3, Housing Provider and Tenant Regulations, or were they meant to apply just to the section having to do with retaliatory conduct? And that's what I read. We wanted penalties to apply just to Title V, Chapter 3, Section 9, which is retaliatory conduct and civil actions by the city as currently drafted. So I'm just going to clarify by motion or friendly amendment that the language that we are adding would be added as 5393 and apply to the retaliatory conduct section specifically, not to Chapter 3 more broadly. If we wanted to talk about penalties for Chapter 3 more broadly, I think that's probably a conversation worth having. But to Councilmember Burns' point, maybe we need to take a little bit more time and have some stakeholder input there. But since all we're doing is talking about, or what I think we want to do is address the retaliatory conduct, I think it's appropriate to, at least for now, target the penalties directly towards that behavior. I had some initial concerns when it seemed to me that this language might apply more broadly, that some concerns that we might be disproportionately impacting smaller landlords. I'm all in favor of going after Quadrell, but I want to make sure we're not doing anything contrary to the smaller moms and pops. But if a small landlord is engaging in retaliatory conduct, I don't think that is any less unacceptable. So I'm going to make that as a friendly amendment. This is option 1 in the email I sent out a few minutes ago.
Can I get some clarification with Corporate Counsel Ruggie? We were thinking the whole chapter, right? Yeah. Option 2 is the one that I would accept as a friendly amendment. It's meant to go for the whole chapter, not just one specific part.
And Councilmember Isles, just to answer your question a little bit thoroughly, good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, Alex Ruggie, Corporation Council. The intent here is that if a landlord is violating any provision of this chapter of the landlord and tenant regulations, that they would be subject to the fines. I do want to clarify that there is a general penalty provision under Title I. So any ordinance on the books already has a penalty provision. Other ordinances throughout the code, and you'll see this in lots of different places, have sections where there's different penalties. So there's a different fine range. And so this is just adding in a different fine range for this chapter. It's going a minimum of 100 up to 1,000 and then allowing for daily fines. Now, when the city would issue generally how the city goes about issuing ordinance citations is there's a notice of violation issued, so there's an opportunity for people to resolve the violation. If the violation's not then resolved, a citation is issued. Once the citation's issued, it goes before the city's administrative law judge, and then the city can showcase what the violation is, and then ultimately it's up to the judge to assess the fines. A lot of times staff will make recommendations. The landlord got the violation, they didn't come into compliance, but they have since, and so no violation is occurring. So in that case, we've seen the judge issue the minimum fines. The situations where the notice is issued, the citation is issued, it continues for months and months and months with no resolution, that's where you're going to see the larger fines and the daily fines issued by the administrative law judge.
Yeah, I think I'm going to, I do want to note that Chapter 7, which is the inclusionary housing ordinance, and Chapter 3, which is the housing provider and tenant regulations ordinance, have very similar language. So what we're talking about here is not just being made up out of whole cloth. Nonetheless, I would prefer to tailor what we're doing tonight to the retaliatory conduct. So if you're not willing to accept that as a friendly amendment, I will make a motion to pursue what I've identified as option 1.
Motion fails for lack of a second.
I'll second that.
All right, Councilmember Nusma moves to amend Ordinance 30-0-26 with option 1 in his email, which is to say any person violating the provisions of this section, that being section 5-3-9-3, Councilmember Rogers seconds the motion. Okay, at this time, there are a bunch of lights on, specifically Councilmembers Rogers, Kelly, Suffred, and Hedekadis. Who among y'all was hoping to speak to this amendment? Okay. Councilmember Kelly.
I'll speak just to this amendment. I think in a way that amendment can help to isolate the smaller landlords from larger landlords in that I've also organized tenants unions in my ward. It tends to be the larger, larger properties that generally would have tenant unions where tenants could suffer from retaliatory action. So I want to support that, I think, for that reason. I have other comments, but just as applies Councilmember Nusma's proposed amendment. And can I ask what the current range is on the current fine range that we have?
Nothing.
Nothing, yeah.
There's currently no fine range, but there's the general penalty provision in Title I. Let me pull that up real quick.
Okay, because I understand that we can, right, I'm sure you're probably right. I just wondered what it was. Or close to nothing.
At this time, no one is seeking to speak for a first time, so we go back to Councilmember Hedekadis with 4 minutes left.
Yeah, I won't support this amendment for the following reason. One of the things that Quadrell has been doing is ignoring our basic landlord-tenant lease language that says you basically can't price gouge people. They are charging people $50 more a month for cable that they're getting for $20-some, $28. That's like $600 a month. That's a significant amount of money for a family, for anyone. And they're like using this to like nickel and dime and make more money off of their tenants, and it's wrong. And so I would like this to be applied to the entire chapter. So for that reason, I'm voting no.
Councilmember Davis, are you signed up to speak to the amendment or to the broader discussion?
Yeah, this is for part, like it goes to the amendment.
Great.
So
Councilmember Davis.
if we already have fines in the ordinance, why aren't we just using the other portion of the ordinance to fine Quadrell?
Thank you, Councilmember Davis. So we could be issuing that. I think the desire here was to go up to the $1,000 day per day. So the general penalty is the low end is $20, not more than $750. So this would bump it up to $1,000 per day per violation. So it's just a larger fine structure.
Okay, but I still have the inquisition as to why we weren't already fining them like the $750.
A day, right.
Yeah, I think that's something that the city's going to look into.
Okay. Well, I'll add that if we're talking about a difference between $750 and $1,000, it's just $250. This doesn't seem as urgent if we already have like a mechanism for fining in the ordinance. That's it. Thank you.
At this time, no one is requesting to speak for a first time, so we go back to Councilmember Isles with 3:30 left.
Yeah, the reason I wouldn't accept this as a friendly amendment is because the violations are broader than just retaliatory. Jonah wasn't able to talk about all of the grievances that the tenants union had, and I think it might be useful, if it's okay, to let him have a little bit of time to talk about what challenges they've had so that we can get an idea of how broadly we want to apply these fines. Is that acceptable?
Also, the way this works is if you want to ask him a question, then he might want to answer that question.
Jonah, can you come to the mic so I can ask you a question? And I bet you can guess what it's going to be.
I can answer any questions that people have.
So can you give us a better idea of the breadth of violations that MTO has seen in this particular case?
Yeah, and I would just like to say that retaliation is colloquially happening. For example, today, the property manager was instructed by the higher ups at the Hampton Parkway building to call every single tenant that signed on to their demand letter. We heard this afternoon that people were getting calls from them. But that statutorily, as I understand, and Corporation Counsel can correct me, is not retaliation. Many of the violations that we've seen from Quadrell that the tenants union is hoping to be able to go after them for are not in fact statutorily considered to be retaliation because that's more narrowly defined. So I did talk about the fees. I talked about illegal provisions in terms of limitations of liability, heating cost disclosure. I do think another one that is worth mentioning is 90 days notice required for all lease renewal offers is an important amendment that was made to the RLTO, which Quadrell has often, although they've gotten better on this particular point, not been adhering to, although they're also required to provide 45 days. They can't require the tenant to renew more than 45 days before the end of the lease, nor can any landlord. And what we've been seeing over the last few weeks is that they've actually been sending out renewal offers with deadlines that are in the past, like a renewal offer on February 28th where you have to respond by February 20th, creating tremendous amounts of panic in the building because it would be funny if it wasn't like people's housing that was at stake. And so I think tenants union is open to considering using the existing fines that are in the general penalty section, but just wanted to draw attention that that authority exists and I think would like to see it be used.
Okay, thank you. So The reason I won't vote for the amendment is because I want it to apply to the entire chapter, not just one specific section.
Still no one requesting to speak for a first time on the amendment, so we go back to Councilmember Kelly with 4:10 left.
Now learning that we can fine these bad landlords that retaliate up to $750 a day, and that hasn't been happening, I feel like our conversation should really be more focused on that. Like, why haven't we? What are the issues that we are not taking? I mean, I don't think by just increasing it $250 a day, it doesn't sound to me like this conversation, that sort of vote, is going to solve that very serious issue. I'm totally in favor of going after the Quadrells and the Gray Stars and others that I've heard about that are violating tenants' rights. But I think that's the discussion we should be having, to understand why we have not, in fact, been issuing these fines. Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion on the amendment, would the clerk please take the roll on the amendment to narrow this just to section 5-3-9-3?
Councilmember Davis? Councilmember Davis?
Yes.
Councilmember Rogers?
Aye.
Councilmember Hadakaris?
No.
Councilmember Kelly?
Aye.
Councilmember Harris? No. Councilmember Isles?
No.
Councilmember Newsma?
Aye.
Councilmember Burns?
No.
Councilmember Sufferton?
Aye.
With 5 voting in favor and 4 voting against, the motion carries and ordinance 30-0-26 is amended. Continuing our discussion, Councilmember Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It was mentioned earlier and it was copied in an email earlier that laws only work when they are enforced. And I agree with that. But worse than having a law on the book, not having a law on the books, is having a law on the books that doesn't really do what we're trying to do. We've seen this happen multiple times. The process under which we move forward with this, I've heard it's discretionary, but the word shall is in there. That doesn't make it discretionary. Shall is a mandate. If we are really serious about doing this and helping people, then I would propose we come together and try to form some sort of a housing court at the municipal level that allows people to be represented in a smaller non-court situation on any issue related to housing. The thing is, I had a situation in my ward just recently where someone was on a month-to-month lease. The landlord had told them they needed to be out in 30 days. I informed the landlord 90 days was the requirement, and the tenant originally told me this was retaliation. Well, in talking to the landlord, I discovered that the tenant was flushing kitty litter down the toilet, had 2 radiators turned off, not just turned off, but disconnected. And so the claim of retaliation isn't always the catch-all. And my question is, in a situation like this is somebody who's running a 4-flat that is doing naturally occurring affordable housing, way below market rate. And he is now looking at just selling his building. And if that building sells, he will not, the rents are going to go up in that building for everybody in there. And so I want to make sure that anything that we're doing, we are doing correctly. And that there is a spelled out process for how this moves forward, for what are the checks and balances in the process to make sure that it is an equally fair process for both sides as we move through. That's one of the reasons that I think we needed to pause this and not do an introduction. And I had told Councilmember Isles that I would not be supporting this, so he was not surprised when I cast the first no vote for introduction and action. But I do think it's something we do need to look into, but we need to do it in a measured approach so that we make sure that we are accomplishing what we want to accomplish and that it is being fair for all parties involved. Thank you.
Councilmember Sufferton.
Yeah, I just wanted to pick up on something Councilmember Burns said, and I'm navigating the new website. I don't know who is on HCDC that's up here, but I think this is worthy of an actual discussion where stakeholders get more than public comment time to discuss this. I don't know if it's again, I can't see who's on it, but I mean, can we schedule an HCDC meeting to have this as a topic? I appreciate the urgency, and our next meeting after this one is the 13th. Is there a time between now and the 13th where this could be put on an agenda to be discussed so that stakeholders, I mean, Sean, you're shaking your head, and I appreciate that. But
There isn't a time. We meet the third week of the month. Councilmember Rogers, Burns, and I are all on that committee.
Okay, so
there
this has
wouldn't
been
be
going
time
on for
between now and
months.
the 13th.
It's urgent, but not worthy of having a discussion where stakeholders can present their concerns here.
It's urgent because people are on the cusp of losing their housing. That's what makes it urgent.
Okay, but it's been going on. Well, I think attempting to put this on for introduction and action is a circumvention of our normal process. I understand your intentions there are altruistic, but I think this affects a group of people who should be able to say what alternatives they would consider and what potentially unforeseen to us impacts this could have. I don't think you're going to have people who are going to say, I am a retaliatory landlord. I'm here to tell you why this is bad for me. I think you'll get a perspective, we all will, that will inform the final product here, so that we're not in a place where we're amending it on the night it's going to pass. So I would just like to say that I agree with Councilmember Burns that this deserves a discussion that's more full than simply public comment made by landlords who were first seeing this language on Thursday.
At this time, no one is asking to speak for a first or second time, so we go back to Councilmember Kelly with 3:30 left.
So however this ends up, whether it comes back here or goes to committee, I would like to see a full report of Quadrell, since this triggered it, of the fines issued, of the hearings that have been had, and how high have we gone on a daily fine for them? I would just like to see that, because I have a feeling that had we ever gotten to the $750 a day, there may have been an impact. So I would like to see that. I think that's very important. Thank you.
Would the clerk please take the roll? This is again for introduction of Ordinance 30-0-26 as just recently amended.
Councilmember Davis?
Aye.
Councilmember Rogers?
For introduction, aye.
Councilmember Hadakaris?
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly?
Aye.
Councilmember Harris? Councilmember Isles?
Aye.
Councilmember Newsma?
Aye.
Councilmember Burns?
Aye.
Councilmember Sufferton?
Aye.
With 9 voting in favor and none voting against, the motion carries, and Ordinance 30-0-26 as just amended is introduced. Councilmember Kelly.
Do I have to make a motion to get that sort of a report of all the fines and everything that's been issued? I mean, or can we count on that? Nothing's been issued. There have been no fines? And all the...
So under the ordinance as drafted, it calls for civil action. So the tenants union came to the city looking for the city to commence civil action. We've issued several letters notifying Quadrell of the violations, and we've had several meetings with Quadrell and the tenants union. Quadrell made some steps forward based on those meetings. It wasn't until recently that the communication had ceased. So I can give you all the letters and their responses and everything, but we have been working directly with them and the tenants union for several months.
But haven't issued violations?
Well, we were going through the civil action section of the ordinance, not the fine section.
Is there any reason? I mean, I know in my ward I've had some issues with some landlords, and I had to really work hard with staff for a long time, and we finally got some serious daily fines and things changed. I'm just wondering.
I think for staff, because there was a civil action provision in the ordinance passed by council and not a fine provision, we believed it was our direction to pursue the civil action path as opposed to fines. I think adding the fines here is giving clarification to staff on, the option to pick the routes. But because it was specifically called out in the ordinance recently passed by council, we were attempting to follow that.
But I do understand it's $20 up to $750. That
Correct.
We could fine.
Yeah,
Okay,
so that's
thank
the
you.
other route we could take now.
Councilmember Rogers?
I just have a follow-up question for council, if I may. Does the civil preclude us from doing the fines? Is that what, so the fines that exist currently could be done? Or does the civil preclude us from doing the fines under, I think you said it was Title I or Chapter 1?
So under Title I, there's a general penalty provision. Essentially, you have to pick a path. You would either pick civil action or you would pick the fines. You would have to cease one before the other could occur. You wouldn't want to take the same case before two different courts.
Well, that's kind of where my question was going is we currently have civil. If we're going the fine route, should we remove civil?
No, you can keep that as an option. I think, we just need more direction on which one we prefer.
Okay.
So, from my perspective, the fine route is essentially a lower standard than a civil action. It's also a quicker, faster, more impactful method.
The final speaker before we move on to SB3 will be Councilmember Hadakatis.
Yeah, and that's why I favored having the raised fines and specifically called out just so that we would have this direction. But I guess we can just move forward.
Now on SB3, is there a motion to facilitate the discussion?
Mr. Mayor, I would move item SP3 for discussion. The next steps with the Evanston Public Library and City Council, and City of Evanston, I guess.
Second.
Councilmember Rogers moves that we discuss the Evanston Public Library next steps. Councilmember Newsma seconds. Councilmember Isles.
Okay. So I spent 10 years on the library board, including 2 years as president. I have a master's of library and information science, so this is somewhat my area of expertise. I just wanted to point out, and a component unit for the library is not uncommon. And this particular arrangement started in 2012. So that was right before I got on the library board. Every plan needs to be updated every once in a while. We have basically a 10-year cycle on these things is our goal, whether it's a bike plan or the CART plan or any of the other plans. So it's overdue to be revisited. But I want to point out something that maybe other council members don't know, which is the history of what it looked like when the library was a department of the city previous to 2012. There's a reason the Evanston Public Library is significantly underfunded per capita than most of its neighbors. When times get hard and budgets are tough, historically the city looked to the library to cut staff for layoffs and to cut funding. Assets were neglected. So on my time on the board, we did a lot of work on the North Branch. We took the asbestos out. We fixed the front. The frontage. We did the roof. We put in an ADA bathroom. We took pretty good care of the assets that we had, even though those assets were owned by the city. The library paid for the upkeep of them. And I'm not sure that anybody on this dais was around when the city voted for Robert Crown. But that project probably would not have happened if the library hadn't been a separate entity. There was not an appetite in Evanston at that time to spend $54 million on a sports complex. It wasn't until the library contributed $2.5 million. And that brought in enough of the public goodwill that they wanted to see a library in that part of town. So that was an important thing that happened because of the system that we currently have. I think we need to take time before we explore option 3, which I think is the nuclear option. Negotiations have sort of stalled between the board and the city manager and corporate counsel. The library board needs some time to select its interim director. The main things that need to be done are an agreement on the building, who's responsible for the cost of the building, to upkeep of the building, and we need a new IGA. And that IGA can include, an agreement as to how much the services that the library purchases from the city. And the library does purchase IT, legal, HR services from the city. And there's some dispute as to what that's worth between the two bodies. But it can include settlements. Like if there is a settlement with a library employee, that can be paid by the board going forward. But I think before we look at the nuclear option, we need to recommit seriously to negotiating those two agreements in particular. I think it's important enough that we need to do that before we blow up the system that we have. Article 4 of the Illinois Library Act allows one council member to be appointed to the library board. And I think that's a good idea. I think that's something that would improve liaison between the two bodies. That council member would be involved in budget and personnel decisions at the library. But the thing that I'm really concerned about, and we've all gotten updates from different legal opinions, I think the worst case scenario is that we decide tonight that we want to do the nuclear option and pull the library back into being a department of the city, and the library board disagrees. And the taxpayer ends up paying for both sides of a court case. They pay for the library side of it, and they pay for the city side of it. And the taxpayer is the loser in that scenario in a pretty significant way. So those are my initial thoughts.
Councilmember Nusma Harris-Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question for Council Ruggie. If she could speak to the legality or the various legal opinions that are floating around there with regards to option 3 or with the departmentalization of the library. If the council were to head in that direction, are we legally allowed to? What are the legal schools of thought on that?
Thank you, Councilmember Nusma. So this is my favorite legal advice. It depends. I know that's not as clear as everyone would like. So I think the issue that we're running into in providing clear direction here is a lack of court set precedent. The Local Library Act was instituted before the 1970 Illinois Constitution, creating Home Rule Authority. But there's been no amendments to specifically limit Home Rule Authority under the Local Library Act. That could be done for two different reasons. One, it wasn't needed until now. And two, the legislature didn't intend to limit Home Rule Authority. So, I think it would be a situation where, there's a very good legal argument to say that under Home Rule Authority, the city does have the ability to conduct number 3 as an option. I did want to briefly address the IGA because Councilmember Iles.
An argument can be made that we do have the authority to departmentalize the library, but there's no precedent for that, and perhaps valid counter argument can be made that it's not allowed.
That's correct. Because, again, there's no precedent either way.
Got it. Okay. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, I was just going to say the IGA was stalled. The city and the library were working through some personnel issues that took priority over that. So we never really got to get started.
Okay. So the Library Act sets up what we have as our current arrangement, which is a component unit, clearly allowable by state law. But I think it's a little bit flawed in that financial authority for library operations is vested not in the city council as an elected body, but in an appointed body. And we have kind of very limited authority through the mayor and the council's ability to weigh in on appointments to that board. And if they want to increase their budget over a certain amount or increase their levy, that would need to be approved by the city council. But other than that, like, they're on their own.
That's correct.
And they're beholden to no voters. That's clearly allowable by state law. That's how it is in a lot of places. It just seems kind of weird to me.
Yeah, I think Evanston makes it a unique situation as well by having the building owned by the city, a lot of staff being paid under the Evanston payroll, the HR services being shared, IT services being shared, legal being shared. So there's a lot of collaboration amongst the library and staff, which I think is a unique setup to the city of Evanston.
And so that collaboration is going to happen no matter what.
Absolutely.
Unless, and I'm not suggesting this, theoretically, we could make the library, it would require a referendum to make it a separate taxing body. Like, I don't think anybody here wants to do that. I'm going to go on the record to say I don't want to do that. It makes sense to, from a taxpayer perspective, share what services we can. And whether it's a department or a component unit, it kind of really doesn't matter. We still have to work out how we're going to relate to each other. And so I guess I'm coming down where Councilmember Isles is coming down is, before we take the more drastic unilateral measure of option 3, let's commit to working with library leadership, administrative leadership, board leadership, council leadership, and just hug it out and figure out how to make it work. I do like the idea of having more direct insight into the workings of the library board by having a council member on that board. I know who I would nominate for that position. So I don't think we could take action on that tonight, but I'd like to see us head in that direction.
Councilmember Harris, Rogers, Kelly, Suffredin.
We can't vote on that tonight because I'm ready to take action. I think we've had enough lack of being able to work together that we need to do that. So we can't.
So I think what you can do tonight is give direction to staff if you want to go with option 2 and direct us to negotiate the IGA, but you could also direct us to bring an ordinance change to the next meeting, adding a council member to the library board.
And I know who I would pick as well. Okay, I think the mayor was going to say something.
Just the appointment process for that council is the same as any other appointment to the library board, correct?
Correct.
Right. So there's a few things in the way. One is having a vacancy, which we don't at this time have, though I think one is coming soon. But as the appointing authority, I'm happy to take that suggestion under advisement. Go ahead, Councilmember.
That's my suggestion. But I do. I just want us to figure this out. Evanston is tough. We have grit. We have tenacity. We can figure this out collectively because what matters is our community. We're part of that community. Books matter. We know that more than ever. We need to stand behind making sure that our residents have access to things that make sense. So I'll stop there for now.
Councilmember Rogers, Kelly, Suffredin, Hadakatis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This was my referral. And the reason that this referral was done was because we were not having discussions, and we were not told we can't have discussions because of personnel. We were blatantly told it would violate OMA for us to have discussions. I have concerns about appointing a member of this committee because of this council, because it doesn't really share things, because they are beholden to the OMA rules of an executive session on personnel to the library, would they not be?
I'm sorry, Councilmember Rogers. I think I misspoke. The attorney for the library and myself and the city's HR department were working on personnel issues. The attorney did not draft an IGA for us to review.
No, I'm
because he was
saying if we had a
focusing on
council member who served as a member of the library board, would they be allowed to share personnel issues with the rest of us on council?
That's a very good question. I'll have to look into it.
I would
but
believe the answer would be no, just
likely
like
not.
anybody else on an executive session cannot share outside of the members of that executive session.
Correct.
So I don't think that gives us that level of insight. I do think it gives us some level of insight into budget. But as we know, we're facing tough budgets, and it was mentioned when budgets get tough, the library gets cut under the old policy. We're striving very hard to cut our budgets. Without a commitment from the library that they intend to cut their budgets, if we cut ours and they raise theirs, we've accomplished nothing for the taxpayer. We have basically washed out each other's budgets changes at that point. I do want us to have this discussion. I am concerned about us being responsible for the actions of the library without any accountability from the library back to the city council. I don't know if that's something that we can negotiate in an IGA. I would find it hard to believe that a board or a committee or another entity would be willing to change that and give up some level of their authority on these issues to us. And right now, like Councilmember Newsma mentioned, the only point of contact really between us and the library board is through the appointment process. And I don't think that's strong enough for us because we don't have positions come open very often. We don't get to a point on that. And I also would hate to see us turn it into being a political football of, oh, well, we're going to put you on because you're going to vote this way or you're going to support this, especially as we're trying to negotiate an IGA. And there are several board members whose terms are coming up due very soon. So I think it is important that we have this discussion. I don't think this is the nuclear option. I think that the nuclear option is to put a referendum on the ballot and say, do you want to go out and become your own district on your own, and ask the residents to support that. I think that is the nuclear option because that really severs all relationships between the two entities. But I'd be interested to hear what the rest of my colleagues who have signed up to speak have to say.
Councilmember Kelly, Suffredin, Hedekadis.
First, I'd like to say, in terms of the gross underfunding that you mentioned, I agree with you. And I would be the first one to advocate for more spending on the library, as I would for public schools. But you have to ensure that it's allocated appropriately. And I think we've seen residents have expressed great concern about some of the ways tax dollars have been spent at the library, and this is one of our concerns. And we don't have the ability to hold accountability to, say, okay, City Manager Stowe, we want to have a session to talk to you about a, $250,000 payout to an employee, or about hiring a search firm for an interim director. I mean, that to me is very expensive. And so, so I do think I am for option 3. I don't see how that could harm the library at all if we're advocates here for the library, and then we can ensure better, greater accountability. I was invited to be on the what's it called, the fundraising, the Evanston Public Library fundraising team, and I send out postcards asking for money, and how does that look to our taxpayers? And I can't respond with some of these expenditures. So I do think it's really important that we do bring it back into the fold so that there is accountability to our taxpayers. And again, I will be the first to advocate for increasing expenditures to the library as long as we know that we have solid leadership. I also want to mention the issues we've had with labor for a long time. We've seen multiple protests. We have amazing, wonderful librarians who've been there for many, many years. Again, we can't call City Manager Stowe to the table about this to say, to express concern and to know what he's going to do about these, what I think have been really some flagrant violations of contract and other issues for our staff at the library. So I do support option number 3, and I'd like to hear what why would that be, how would that be harmful? I guess that's what I'd like to hear. So I think that's it. Thank you.
Councilmember Seferdin Hadakaris.
Alex, this is a question I'm going to ask you, but it's really a question for a party that's not in the room. With option 2, what is a reasonable timeline based on your experience with this process for a negotiated IGA?
Reasonable. I mean, if council said get this done in 30 days, we would have to work to get it done within 30 days.
You would.
I would, right.
The library
but it has to go to the
board
library
does not.
board. Yeah, I mean, they only meet once a month, so it would have to probably, I'd say 3 months would be reasonable.
Okay. And I mean, that kind of illustrates the issue and the reason why option 3 makes some sense, but at the same time, Councilmember Riles' point is well taken that I'm not interested as a taxpayer in funding a landmark case testing the library board statutory authority. But you think 3 months, that's a very educated guess.
Yeah, I think so. I think that gives an opportunity for the library's outside counsel to provide a draft, me to bring that to you all, review it, get edits back to them, take it to their board, and go back and forth a couple of times.
Okay.
So.
And is that dependent upon them finding an interim executive director?
I guess that's up to them. They have an interim director right now, and essentially it would be up to the board to sign off on the IGA. So personally, I don't believe they need an interim director. I would understand why they would want that person to help, but they do have an interim director right now who's been with the library a very long time, as well as a fully staffed board. Personnel
There that could make this happen if that were something that the board would endeavor to do. Okay. I don't want to say I prefer option 3, but I don't think option 3 should be off the table. I will note that we've had library issues come to us for payment that we have had no role in messing up to the point where they had to come to us for payment, and I find that frustrating. If you think, in conclusion, you think 3 months is a reasonable amount of time on an IGA if that's the route, and I don't think option 3 should be off the table either.
Councilmember Hadakaris.
I would prefer that we move forward with an IGA. I think a lot of our issues have been over clarity around roles and responsibilities, and also, I think there's, this big facilities piece that's kind of been looming over the library, uncertainty around their building and, fixing their roof, things that we really need to come to agreement on and be on the same page. And so I think I like the idea that have 3 months to work through the IGA, and that'll, I think, put us in a better place.
At this time, no one is asking to speak for a first time, so we go back to Councilmember Kelly with 250 left.
I guess I just would like a little more, understanding and analysis of really what kind of a risk we're at with 3. I just, the same way in 2016, council voted to change it. My understanding and communications with, state library, that it's not a big issue. So I guess I'd like to understand how much of a real threat, a risk this is.
Ultimately, it all comes down to whether or not it's within our home rule authority to do it. Like I said, the Local Library Act was passed prior to 1970 when the Illinois Constitution authorized home rule authority. So courts have looked at that to view it as there's no exception for home rule because it was passed prior to home rule even existing. So it's not as illustrative as more recent statutes that are passed exempting home rule. So, for example, there's a law that's going to come into effect later this year that requires all municipalities not to have parking minimums if they're in different districts close to public transportation. That statute specifically says home rule authority shall not pass different regulations, differing from that. So it's very clear. Here, the Library Act doesn't have that, but again, it was passed prior to the Constitution. So there's no case law interpreting it one way or the other. There's been cases that have talked about home rule authority or looked at the Local Library Act, again, but not in the lens of the home rule authority. So it's going to be a case that a court needs to rule on. So there's risk, but I can't tell you which way it will land.
Thank you. I just, I know in the Library Act, it authorizes the city. You have the option to grant certain powers to your library, but it's an option. I can't imagine any court saying you can't hold your library board accountable, that you can't, that the taxpayers can have a means of accountability structure within a city. It's very hard. Like, so if the library, I was frustrated that the roof wasn't repaired. I know there was dispute about who would pay for it, and I know patrons were upset that the children's section was cut off for a very long period of time. I had no way as an elected official, when my residents had, duly elected me for these sort of responsibilities, I couldn't weigh in. I couldn't, like I say, there was no structure in place for that. So it's very hard for me to believe that this would be an issue for a court. Thank you.
At this time, no one is asking to speak for a first time, so we go back to, for a last opportunity, to Councilmember Isles, who used up all your time, so if you could be quick in your final comments, please.
Okay, I'll be quick. I think 90 days is reasonable. I don't want to speak for the library board, but I think if an extra meeting or two was required, they would probably be willing to do that. It seems like a low bar to be able to get a solidified decision on the IGA and the lease. They are capable under the Open Meetings Act of calling a meeting. They just have to notice it properly, and they know how to do that. The risk is beyond just the lawsuit that is completely unknown and sort of becoming a strange entity that is suing itself, which would probably make national news. But we've in the past, the city has not prioritized the library. When you have a group of dedicated citizens, and I do feel like they're accountable to the community that they live in, that are focused solely on library issues, they do that better than council does with the wide variety of things that we are responsible for. And I'm worried that the gains that we've made since 2012 to sort of increase the amount that we spend on the library would be erased very quickly. And you know that we are facing a very difficult budget cycle. And so I know that you are very concerned about the union. The union is at danger of losing employees. I don't remember ever laying off any employees when I was on the library board.
All right, at this time, no one's asking to speak for a first or second time, so we go back to Councilmember Kelly with 1:30 left.
I just want to say I'm concerned about the employees and the employees, period. All employees, union and non-union, but I'm also very concerned about how funds have been allocated, to make that very clear. I'm concerned about programs that have been cut, collections. I'm very concerned. I'm concerned about expenditures, hiring a search firm for an interim director. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. This concludes the special orders of business. I think a pretty significant portion of the folks left here tonight are here to here because of item PD1. So let's skip ahead to item PD1. Councilmember Hadakadis, do you have a motion relative to item PD1?
I move approval for introduction of ordinance 13026, granting a special use permit for a planned development and special use permit for a child daycare center at 3434 Central Street in the R2 Single Family Residential District.
I second.
Councilmember Hadakatis moves introduction of ordinance 13-0-26. Councilmember Rogers seconds. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Sufferton.
Sure. And I thank you all involved for sticking around. I appreciate that. I'll be brief and then open up for discussion. I'm very sympathetic to the church's circumstance. You've been trying to solve for a very long time. Some of that time was eaten up with litigation with the co-op. That's over now. At the end of the day, the level of contortion required to make Kensington fit here does not strike me as worth it. And I'm inclined to vote no. But I'm open to hearing discussion from my neighbors. I think with the information that was presented at land use, the concern expressed by the land use commissioners that they confine their analysis to the lot itself and leave the larger questions to council. It's our responsibility to look at it in totality. I think a commercial enterprise in this residential parcel is not entirely appropriate, but it's doable. But what's being proposed is too big for the spot. It's a pre-existing bad traffic situation that'll be exacerbated. I think, and I appreciate Kensington's attempt to address that, but I think the way that I think that the approach is we will deal with these problems as they come up. I think that they're foreseeable and predictable. I appreciate the work that KLOA did with the city. There's a third entity here, which is IDOT, which is not present. I sent to all of you just some of the information about the complexity of that intersection as it relates to IDOT's future plans. At the end of the day, I think this is just not the right thing for that location. I also am understanding of the fact that imaginary fantasy buyers don't exist. This is the only purchaser that I was ever made aware of. I think that we all want to see the increased property tax revenue that would happen here, but that will happen with any purchaser that is not a not-for-profit. And so just succinctly, that's my position, and I'm willing to listen to what any of you think as well.
Councilmember Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think I have the privilege of having worked with this Kensington longer than anybody else in the room, probably, because they came to land use, I don't know how many years ago, looking at a space on Hurd across from Willard School, where we saw that for the first time, and that was a problem because of the concerns with the school buses, parents dropping off on Hurd at the same time this would be happening for Kensington. The second time they came to us was at this current location. I voted against it on land use then because there were some underlying issues that needed to be addressed. Number one was the easement on the property, and number two was concerns with the traffic moving in and out of their parking area based on the traffic flow of what is a very, very bad intersection. But at the same time, there is possibility for development here at some level, depending on how aggressive some of my colleagues up here get with what they want to have built throughout the city, more so probably than I would. This has the potential of being an overdeveloped site at some time in the future from that. And that's not a scare tactic, that's based in some level of reality. There is an unknown. This has been identified as one of the corridors. I believe this is a secondary corridor on our new comprehensive general plan, meaning that we expect to see something more here. And so I do have concerns about the traffic, but I think the traffic is being addressed in a way that does ease the congestion on the neighborhood and on the intersection itself. So I still do have some questions. I wish we would have been able to get to them in P&D and have a little bit of a presentation discussion from them, as opposed to them just kind of sitting in the room and hearing us talk about them, which is awkward, I'm sure. But I'm in favor of moving this forward for introduction and hopefully having some continued discussions and explorations of what can happen on the site and with the concerns about traffic.
Would the clerk, Councilmember Kelly?
I echo Councilmember Suffredin's concerns, and I absolutely want to support Unity Church. So that's not easy. This is an easy decision, but after hearing from many residents and considering the scale and visiting the area, I do feel between the traffic concerns and the scale and the neighborhood sensitivities and a high intensity commercial project there and trees coming down, I'm just not at this point in time. I'm not comfortable supporting it. Thank you.
Would the clerk please take the roll?
I had flicked my light on.
I know, but then you turned it off again. It was very exciting.
Oh, I didn't mean to turn it off. I'm sorry.
At this time, no one is asking to speak for a first time, so we go back to Councilmember Rogers with 2.5 minutes left.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do want to say this is not high-intensity commercial. This is not a shopping plaza. This is not something along those lines. So I do want to say that. Also, the size of the building, which has come up before, when you make a two-story building, you are required to put additional things into that building. You need stairwells. You need second bathrooms on the second floor. So I think some of these arguments don't hold water for me on that end. I do think the traffic is a concern, and I'm looking at the traffic, and I want to have that continue that discussion on traffic. But I think some of these other things are overinflated concerns that really do work with anything being built on the site.
Councilmember Hadakatis.
Yeah, I met with some of the concerned neighbors, and my only building that kind of corresponds to this situation is the car wash on Oakton, which I think when this was before I was on council, when that was approved, I think we could have seen that, if you've been around any car wash, when it's a nice day, there's always a line of traffic. And that's like a concern. And I think there was not enough work done around the, ingress and egress. Looking at this site, I go up there quite a bit to eat at Sarkey's, and it's not a good intersection. But I think the kind of like the low traffic of pickup and drop off from what I've seen, and also the right in, right out, does look to minimize those issues. And for that reason, as much as I would like to see housing on this site, that's not going to happen anytime soon. And this is I think the best option we have. I think it will be something that will not be as high impact as some folks make it out to be.
At this time, no one is asking to speak for a first time, so we go back to Councilmember Kelly with 4:20 left.
So I just want some understanding of how long this was on the market before. I don't think so. Can somebody, is somebody here to present?
Hi, everybody. I'm Chuck Barless. I'm one of the owners of Kensington School. Should I be presenting anything or just answering questions or what? I know we didn't have a P&D meeting. I wasn't sure if I'd be presenting.
Yeah, so at this time, it would be appropriate to answer the council member's question, which, to be honest, is more of a question to the church, I would argue, right?
The church would know how long.
Yeah, how long it was for sale?
A little over a year, I think.
About a year? Okay.
So if the church could come speak, thank you.
I'm not sure. It's been so darn long. It's been almost 10 years since we first made the choice to sell. That was quite a process just to engage the congregation. I'm thinking we worked with Cressa, was the real estate firm, and we probably engaged with them back in 2018. It's about 7 years ago.
But it was on
Probably
the market.
two years, about a year that was on the market, Mark, would that be?
So it's on
About a year that was on the market, and Cressa, and Kensington made an offer.
Okay. Thank you.
Would the clerk please take the roll?
Councilmember Davis?
No.
Councilmember Rogers?
Aye.
Councilmember Hadakaris?
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly?
No.
Councilmember Harris? No. Councilmember Isles?
No.
Councilmember Newsma?
Aye.
Councilmember Burns?
No.
Councilmember Sufferton?
With 3 voting in favor and 6 voting against, the motion fails and ordinance 13-0-26 is not introduced. We now go back to the sort of regular order of the agenda, beginning with A2. Councilmember Kelly, do you have a motion relative to item A2?
I'd like to move item A2, approval of the BMO Harris Amazon credit card activity.
Second.
Councilmember Kelly moves approval of BMO Harris Amazon credit card activity. Councilmember Hadakaris seconds. Would the clerk please take the roll?
Sorry, give me 1 second. Councilmember Davis?
Aye.
Councilmember Rogers?
Aye.
Councilmember Hadakaris?
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly?
Aye.
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Councilmember Isles?
Yes.
Councilmember Newsma?
Aye.
Councilmember Burns?
Aye.
Councilmember Sufferton?
I abstain.
Councilmember, go ahead.
With 8 voting in favor, none voting against, and 1 abstention, the motion carries and the credit card activity is approved. Now on item A4, Councilmember Kelly, do you have a motion?
I'd like to move item A4, 26R26, approval of contract award with Fowler Services for the demolition of city-owned property located at 727 to 39.
The motion fails for lack of a...
Second, sorry.
Councilmember Kelly moves adoption of Resolution 26-R-26. Councilmember Newsma, upon extraordinary duress, seconds the motion. Councilmember Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a property on Howard Street that I have asked for the city to put up for demolition. I do want to talk to our purchasing department, not to try to influence their decision. I don't have any concern about that. It is more so that this bid came in extremely low in comparison to the other bids that were offered. It came in 60,000 below the second and about twice the amount or half the amount of the next highest one. And so I would just like to get some better understanding about how we ensure compliance with the RBO, with permits that will be purchased, because I know the cost of permits in the city of Evanston is not always easy or low, especially when you're looking at tearing up a street like Howard Street, which has recently been paved and increases the cost on those. So I would respectfully ask that this be held until our next meeting.
Second.
Councilmember Rogers moves to hold item A4. Councilmember Kelly seconds. This motion is non-debatable. Is there a motion to overturn the hold? Seeing none, Resolution 26-R-26 will appear on the first regular council meeting of April 2026. Now on item A7, Councilmember Kelly.
I move item A7, Resolution 30R26, approval of contract award with Beridis Incorporated for the Cartwright Park and Fitzsimmons Park renovations.
Second.
Councilmember Kelly moves adoption of Resolution 30-R-26. Councilmember Nusma seconds. Councilmember Nusma.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a question for staff regarding our responsible bidders ordinance and some question as to whether or not this winning bidder or the recommended bidder is compliant.
I can answer initial questions further detail. We probably need to refer to Tammy Nunez, but they do comply with the responsible bidder ordinance. They've submitted all the appropriate documentation.
Okay, thank you. Any other?
Councilmember Kelly.
So it's been challenged and suggested that they don't, for example, have an apprenticeship program.
So I'll defer that to Tammy Nunez, who did the review. She's online.
Good evening. This is Tammy Nunez, Mayor Biss, City Manager Stowe, committee members, and Clerk Mendoza. The firm did submit their information regarding their apprentice program that we have reviewed. They do have a current program in place. Is there any other questions regarding the paperwork or that I can help answer?
I guess I'd like to understand how that's verified that they are compliant with the training requirement of the responsible bidders ordinance.
I can share their certificate of the program, the firm they're affiliated with you guys.
Okay.
So we do review it. It appears from my review that it meets our standards for the RBO.
Okay, so you'll share that with us?
I mean, I just not to it seems like there have been a couple of questions that were sort of, where maybe there was a little bit of uncertainty about what to make of the answer. I mean, I think probably if that uncertainty exists, maybe the best course of action would be to, similar to the previous item, hold this and allow the discussions to happen without being under the gun in this manner.
Then I'd like to move to hold this.
I think Councilmember Sufferton, do you want to weigh in on that idea? Because that's not debatable.
As a supporter of the responsible bidder ordinance, and also the alderman in whose ward Cartwright Park is, holding this has what practical effect?
It shortens the construction season by 2 weeks. So it could have impacts on the back end in terms of completion.
Okay, so less than ideal, but not fatal.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Yeah, thanks for flagging that question. Back to you, Councilmember Kelly.
So with that, I'd like to hold this to be able to further examine the response and to understand the training program that is in place. There's also some concerns that were brought up about past practices that I'd like to discuss with staff. And
Councilmember Kelly moves to hold this item. Is there a second?
Second.
Councilmember Sufferton seconds. The motion is not debatable. Seeing no motion to overturn the hold, this item will again be on the first regular April meeting. And I would just respectfully urge everybody who's got questions and concerns to dig into those between now and then so that we have clarity when we arrive in 3 weeks. What? Councilmember Burns.
Yeah, as we go off and do that, I just want to be clear that from what I remember, it wasn't required that they have a apprenticeship training program, but that they be at least partnered with somebody that has an apprenticeship program that's graduated at least 5 people over the last 5 years. So I just want to make sure we're rooted in the language in the ordinance. Thank you.
Now on item A8, Councilmember Kelly.
I'd like to move item 8, Resolution 31R26, approval of sole source contract with Gree Hill North America for a smart tree inventory of the city's public trees.
Second.
Councilmember Kelly moves adoption of Resolution 31-R-26. Councilmember Nusma seconds. Councilmember Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just pulled this off because I wanted to say I think this is a great thing to be doing. We have this tree preservation ordinance, but we have no idea what trees we have. And so actually knowing what trees we have might help us guide a better tree preservation ordinance. So I fully support this.
Will the clerk please take the roll?
Councilmember Davis?
Aye.
Councilmember Rogers?
Aye.
Councilmember Jacques?
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly?
Aye.
Councilmember Harris?
Aye.
Councilmember Isles?
Aye.
Councilmember Newsma?
Aye.
Councilmember Burns?
Aye.
Councilmember Sufferton?
With 9 voting in favor and 0 voting against, the motion carries and Resolution 31-R-26 is adopted. Now on item A8, Councilmember Kelly.
Resolution
Nope, 9, sorry.
Resolution 32R26, approval of the 2026 calendar of special events.
Second.
Councilmember Kelly moves approval of Resolution 32-R-26. Councilmember Harris seconds. Councilmember Isles.
I pulled this. I'm going to abstain. My employer, Interfaith Action, has an event that's being approved, and so does the Lighthouse Rotary Club, which I'm a new member of.
Councilmember Kelly, followed by Newsma.
Thank you. I just wanted to comment on some of the First Ward Lakefront events, which are wonderful, and we all support them and their goals and mission. And I just want to thank Audrey Thompson. We had a lot of discussion because some of the residents were taken by surprise. And I don't know if Director Thompson, if you'd like to speak going forward, how we can maybe avoid that. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. Audrey Thompson, Director of Parks and Recreation, to Mayor Biz, City Manager Stowe, Clerk Mendoza, and members of the City Council. So first, I'd like to say that Councilmember Kelly, I do apologize for you getting the message, or for me getting in contact with you later than your constituents found out about the march that will be held on Saturday. I run a pretty big department. I don't like to be caught off guard. And so I never want you to be caught off guard for any event. Moving forward, we have 101 events that are on the catalog for this summer. And 33 of those events are City of Evanston Parks and Rec events, and then 15 of those are at the lakefront. Back in 2013, there was an agreement with City Council of how many high-impact and low-impact events we would have on the lakefront. We are still under that number for all of the events that will take place, and we keep count of those. So any new events that will come in, I will make sure to let Councilmember Kelly know. But moving forward next year, before we bring this calendar to the council, if there are any new events that take place in your ward, we will invite you to a special events committee meeting, which is held every Wednesday at 1:30 with internal staff members, and we discuss every aspect of that event application. We'll invite you all to come. You can say, I pass. I mean, it's one event, no harm, no foul, I'm good. Or you can come to the meeting and ask us any question that you like. So we'll do that moving forward.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Newsma.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Love all these special events. I think almost everybody loves a good street fair. I'm fully supportive of this. I just want to take this opportunity to flag a conversation that I'd like to have with city staff. We are receiving feedback from our SSAs, Main Dumpster Mile, downtown Evanston. I'm not sure about Central Street, but maybe the same question up there about charging those organizations for parking. And whether or not we could waive that fee, which I would be supportive of. You know, these fairs are bringing in more people than would be here otherwise, and at least downtown they're probably paying to park in a garage rather than on a street, so it's not a loss of revenue. And I'd like to make sure we have that conversation and consider that. So that's something.
So just wanted to let you know that several weeks ago, City Manager Stowe asked that the Special Events Committee take this and look at all of the events. We formed a subcommittee and met 3 weeks ago, and we'll have 4 options for the City Council to discuss at the next City Council meeting.
Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Would the clerk please take the roll?
Councilmember Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember Rogers.
Aye.
Councilmember Hadakaris.
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly. Aye. Councilmember Harris.
Aye.
Councilmember Isles.
I abstain.
Member Nusma. Aye. Councilmember Burns. Aye. Councilmember Sufferton.
With 8 voting in favor, none voting against, and 1 abstention, the motion carries, and Resolution 32-R-26 is adopted. Now on item A12, Councilmember Kelly.
Resolution 35R26, proposed private side lead service line replacement incentive pilot program.
Councilmember Kelly moves adoption of Resolution 35-R-26. Councilmember Harris seconds. Councilmember Kelly.
Thank you. I just had one question, and thank you, Director King, for your responding to my questions. So this would only apply, just to be clear, for residents who have where the laterals under the public way have already been changed to copper, correct? So, is that right?
Mayor Biss, members of the City Council, Clerk Mendoza, Darrell King, Water Production Bureau Chief. So thank you for asking that question earlier. So part of this pilot program would fall under the homeowner initiated program. So if the water service in the public right of way is copper already, and it's lead or galvanized steel on the private side, that type of location would qualify. But in addition to that, in the memo, under, what section was that? Proposed incentive pilot program, there were 5 bullet points. There should have been 6. And that 6th bullet point qualifies another category under the homeowner initiated program. So if there's a location and it's a full lead service line, for instance, that type of location would qualify too. There would be mandatory coordination with the city, because in that situation, the city would replace the public portion at no cost to the homeowner. The homeowner would hire a plumber to change the private portion, and that type of location would qualify as well.
Thank you. So that would mean that anybody who's got lead lines going to from the B box to their home would qualify. It
Yes.
doesn't have to be just connected to copper. So anybody would qualify for that reduction in the portion under private property.
As long as it falls under the homeowner initiated program. So the homeowner initiated program, the objective of it is if a homeowner didn't want to wait on the city
Right.
to get their service line changed, they said, look, I'll just take care of it. They can do their side, and if it's lead in the public side, we'll take care of that. And then now there's an incentive, if approved, where there could be a $2,500 rebate, which is important because a private side lead service line, and what we're learning is the cost of a private side lead service line. There is a wide range depending upon what type of program it is, where they're located, if they're scattered around, if they're part of a water main replacement. It's all over the place. But none of the programs cost $2,500 or less. They're much higher than that.
Okay, so you would do, like, the city would do the work on the laterals under the public way at a different point in time, or would the homeowner have to coordinate, I would think?
We got to coordinate.
So regardless of what the lines are under the public way, any homeowner that would like to apply for that $2,500 reduction can go ahead and get them, even if the city's not doing the work on that part of the water main?
So if it's, let's say, for instance, it's a situation in the public right-of-way, it's copper already. A homeowner could participate and say, hey, I want to replace mine on the private side. That location could qualify. Or if it's full lead and the homeowner desires to replace their side now, that location would qualify as well. And if it's a full lead service line, water production would take care of the public side, homeowner, the private side, and there would be coordination to do that.
Okay, so it wouldn't have to follow in that. So I understand the first case with the copper lines already installed, that the city at some point installed copper lines just under the public way, I guess prior to 2022?
Yeah, so prior to 2022, there was no law that required municipalities, when they're replacing water main, for instance, that they had to go all the way into the building. That law started January 1, 2022.
Okay, so until then, we were just replacing the lead laterals only under the public way. But I guess what I'm still unclear of and trying to understand, I get the copper part when it's copper, but I have, say someone has, so the city would actually do that work. I mean, it wouldn't be on, because I know there's a schedule for the replacement, but it wouldn't matter. Like if it's all lead all the way from the main to the house, if a resident wants to do theirs, the city will go ahead and change out the city's?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Newsome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to support this. One of my concerns, or one of the city's concerns, our concerns, when it comes to replacing these lead service lines, and there are thousands throughout the city, is that we keep equity in mind, and we don't impose undue burdens on lower income residents. And if we look at this program, somebody could argue that we are offering to subsidize a higher income homeowner who's capable of picking up at least part of the bill. And that's a true statement. However, the way I get through this is that in the end, offering this little bit of a carrot and incentive, if it does unlock some additional private investment from a homeowner, we'll end up saving the city money that we can easily spend on other lead service lines. And so approaching this as a pilot makes sense. We'll gather some data as to who applies and how successful this is, and then recalibrate in a year and see where we're at and go from there. So this makes sense to me as a pilot program.
Will the clerk please take the roll?
Councilmember Davis? Councilmember Davis? Councilmember Rogers?
Aye.
Councilmember Hadakaris?
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly?
Aye.
Councilmember Harris? Aye. Councilmember Isles?
Aye.
Councilmember Newsma?
Aye.
Councilmember Burns? Aye. Councilmember Sufferton? Aye.
With 8 voting in favor and none voting against, the motion carries, and Resolution 35-R-26 is adopted. Now on item A13, Councilmember Kelly.
Resolution 36R26, approval of contract with Suburban Tree Consortium for the purchase of trees and planting services for spring of 2026.
Second.
Councilmember Kelly moves adoption of Resolution 36-R-26. Councilmember Harris seconds. Councilmember Kelly.
I only pulled this off because of the planting portion. I understand the purchasing of the trees, but what our city's capacity is, this is certainly work that would it be forestry would do this normally?
Good evening, Mayor Biz, members of the City Council, City Clerk Mendoza, City Manager Stowe, Noel Rodriguez, Public Service Bureau Chief. Our internal staff does some plantings, but this is, we typically do about 500 plantings per year, and wouldn't be something that our internal staff could take on at this moment.
So because I assume every year we're doing a lot of plantings?
500 is typically what we.
And so we can't, do we need to increase forestry? It would be forestry, right?
Correct. Forestry staff would be the one that would do some of the plantings. They do participate in the stump grinding right now, preparation for the sites where they get the plantings. However, with the cyclical pruning cycle that they have, this would be work that currently with our staff, something that we would not be able to take on.
Okay. I guess I can talk more offline on this, but I would be interested in exploring to see what it would take to bring. I mean, it seems like the tree plantings, that's an awful lot of trees every year. And certainly that I understand is 3 seasons of the year where there's tree work involved. So it does beg the question whether we should increase our staff.
No, certainly. And with the tree inventory that we're going to be taking on with the LiDAR tree inventory, that's going to give us a lot of useful information on the equipment, staffing, and really what the outlook should be.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Will the clerk please take the roll?
No.
Oh, she fell.
Councilmember Davis? I think she is no longer on the call. Councilmember Rogers?
Aye.
Councilmember Hadakaris?
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly? Councilmember Harris?
Aye.
Councilmember Isles?
Aye.
Councilmember Newsma? Aye. Councilmember Burns? Aye. Councilmember Sufferton?
With 8 voting in favor and none voting against, the motion carries. Daniel, help. With 8 voting in favor and none voting against, the motion carries, and Resolution 36-R-26 is adopted. Now on item A15, Councilmember Kelly.
Resolution 38R26, authorizing the city manager to execute Amendment Number 1 to the agreement with Trans US Incorporated for Prieto HVAC electrification for $1.8 million.
Second.
Councilmember Kelly moves adoption of Resolution 36-8-26. Councilmember Harris seconds. Councilmember Sufferton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had asked this question earlier, and I got an answer. So far, we're into this building for 3.1. This will bring us close to 5. When we purchased it, we talked about that we would assess the financial viability of it. I don't know if it's a question for Luke or Audrey, like when is it appropriate to question that? I know that we've got the cafe coming online, but that was one of the discussions that we had as a council, was that we would assess the viability of this and where it fits in with our other community centers. When does that happen?
Thank you, Councilmember Sufferton, for the question. Director Thompson, feel free to weigh in here as well. The daycare will launch in May and the cafe will launch in June. So I think later this year we'll have a better handle on some additional revenue that will be coming in from both the daycare and from the cafe.
Okay, so at the end of the year, it's a fair time to assess what we put in, what we get out. Obviously, we're not a business. There's a public good being had here, but can we have a discussion about that at the end of the year with data that has some validity to it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Would the clerk please take the roll?
Councilmember Rogers?
Aye.
Councilmember Hadakaris?
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly? Councilmember Harris?
Aye.
Councilmember Isles?
Aye.
Councilmember Newsma? Aye. Councilmember Burns? Aye. Councilmember Sufferton?
Aye.
With 8 voting in favor and none voting against, the motion carries, and Resolution 38-R-26 is adopted. Now on item PD3, Councilmember Hadakaris.
I will move approval of PD3, Ordinance 23026, designating the property located at 2700 Hurd Avenue, commonly known as Francis Willard Elementary School, an Evanston landmark.
Second.
Councilmember Hadakaris moves approval of Ordinance 23-0-26. Councilmember Harris seconds. You guys have complicated decision-making about lights. Councilmember Sufferton, followed by Rogers at this time.
I would like to move that we table this till our April 27th meeting.
Second.
Councilmember Sufferton moves to table this item to the April 27th, is that correct?
Yep.
To the April 27th City Council meeting. Councilmember Newsma seconds. This is a non-debatable motion. Would the clerk please take the roll?
Councilmember Rogers?
No.
Councilmember Hadakaris?
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly? Aye. Councilmember Harris?
Aye.
Councilmember Isles?
Aye.
Councilmember Newsma?
Aye.
Councilmember Burns? Aye. Councilmember Sufferton?
Aye.
With 7 voting in favor and 1 voting against, the motion carries, and this item is tabled to the second regular April 2026 meeting of the Evanston City Council. Now on item FB1, Councilmember Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item FB1 for introduction, Ordinance 25026, authorizing the 2026 general obligation bond issues not to exceed $37 million.
Second.
Councilmember Rogers moves introduction of Ordinance 25-0-26. Councilmember Harris seconds. Councilmember Kelly.
So I pulled this off and won't support it only because I've asked several times, we don't have yet an accounting or even a rough accounting of the unobligated excess reserves. And I've been told, I hope we can get that together so that we can understand that better and earlier on, that we won't have those until the audit comes out. So I feel like we really need to have a handle on what is available and unobligated in terms of excess reserves before issuing more debt. Debt is expensive. Also, when I go for residents, when I look at like our website and I go to the debt fund, the digital budget book has not yet been published, so it's not available. The most recent debt fund published for the public. And then I have one question about this. Last year, we didn't issue because the rates were considered too high when they were at, I think, Mr. Desai, they were around 4.67, and we didn't want to issue them, but now we're setting a ceiling at 5.5. So I just want to understand why we wouldn't at least hold that, the ceiling down, and have our underwriters work a little harder.
Good evening, Mayor and the members of the City Council. I mean, that's why we call it a parameters ordinance, which is generally higher. Even if you look at the annual debt service, it's almost like a 3.25 million. But based on the numbers, actual debt service would be right around 2.3 to 2.4 million dollars. So we just said that because sometimes, we might have to restructure the rates in that. But based on the numbers we got from them when they ran the numbers, I think in February end, the rate came down to around 3.8.
Okay, and what is the money that we're refunding from the 2013A? What is the rate on that? What was the average weighted?
I mean, the rates differ. So I think the range is 4% to the 4.75%. That's the range for the 2013A bonds.
Okay, well, I would hope we won't refund it for a higher rate.
Absolutely no, it doesn't. Okay. I mean, that's why we did not refund for the last 3 years.
Well, okay, thank you. Oh, and in terms of volatility, I mean, in issuing bonds now, what is the general sense? I mean, it just feels like we're at a moment.
I mean, particularly in light of this, what's going on, geopolitical situation and the war and all that, yes, the things continue to change. I mean, we see that, okay, should we refinance particularly, but at the same time, what happens is, like these bonds, 2013, were due for refunding in 2023. And we did not refund because the rates were higher. But at the same time, the amount to be refunded is now shrinking because we make the payments in 13, 14, 23, 24. So basically the savings stays the same. I mean, I just asked the financial advisor, what would have been our savings had we refinanced in 2023, right, when that became callable after 10 years. And that amount was a little higher than what we are seeing right now. So it's like a delicate balance between the rate environment and how much amount to be refunded.
Thank you.
Would the clerk please take the roll?
Aye.
Councilmember Hadakaris?
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly? Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Councilmember Isles?
Aye.
Councilmember Burns? Councilmember Sufferton? Councilmember Newsma?
With 7 voting in favor and 1 voting against, the motion carries and ordinance 25-0-26 is introduced. Now on item HCDC 1, Councilmember Burns.
Is this rules?
No, HCDC.
I move for action, HCDC 1, approval of the 2025 Consolidated Annual Performance Evaluation Report for the city's Community Development Block Grant, Emergency Solutions Grant, and Home Investment Partnerships Grant.
Second.
Councilmember Burns moves approval of the 2025 Consolidated Annual Performance Evaluation Report. Councilmember Newsma seconds. Councilmember Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I pulled this off because I would hope that we can get this earlier next year. I know it's tight, but at the same time, it really doesn't allow us to have questions because we literally approved this Friday afternoon at 1 o'clock, and it's now here, and it has to be into the federal government by the 31st, even if we have preliminary numbers, because I do have some questions that I still need to address with Director Flax about our inspections in particular. And so that's just a request. I'm voting for this because I want us to get it on. But I would just like to make the request that if we can see things a little bit earlier, and I know that's asking a lot, but.
Good evening, Mayor Biss, City Manager Stowe, Clerk Mendoza, members of the City Council. This is a very challenging time frame for us, too. We have to wait till the fiscal year is pretty much closed out because we do accrual accounting. And we don't have any flexibility on the time when we get it to HUD. And we have to have a 15-day period of public comment. So depending on how the council meetings fall, makes it very difficult to give people more time. Honestly, it's really a thing of the calendar. Now, we can look into if there's some way we could give the committee some indication, but you know, when you're trying to get all of the billing for the last year done properly and get it into the system and get everything written and prepared to go to HUD, it really is not a long time frame for us.
And
So
I
it's a
appreciate
challenge.
that, but I mean, it's also not a long time frame for us either to approve it. And so anything we can do to help move that along. I mean, we had to have a special meeting on a Friday afternoon in order to make this deadline.
Well, this was a unique year because we were going to meet on the 17th, but then that was changed. So,
yes.
Yeah.
Would the clerk please take the roll?
Councilmember Rogers?
Aye.
Councilmember Hadakadis?
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly? Councilmember Harris? Councilmember Isles?
Aye.
Councilmember Newsma?
Aye.
And Councilmember Burns? Councilmember Sufferton?
With 8 voting in favor and none voting against, the motion carries and the report is approved. Now we move to call of the wards. Councilmember Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First off, I'd like to say thanks to everybody for going out and voting on Tuesday. We did change some of our polling places in the 8th Ward, which caused a little bit of confusion, but hopefully that is all being resolved, and I've spoken with the clerk, and hopefully we have some ways of better informing people when their polling site changes, because the county information is not easy to spot when they send you their mailer. And then I also have a ward meeting scheduled for this Thursday at 6:30 at the Peckish Pig on Howard Street. We'll be talking about the Howard and Evanston Community Center and also the where we stand with PAW, the Putting Assets to Work program.
Councilmember Hadakadis.
Nothing to report.
Councilmember Kelly. No report. Councilmember Harris. No report. Councilmember Isles.
I'm going to have to change my office hours from Thursday the 2nd to Thursday the 9th because the 2nd is spring break. So on the 9th, Brothers K, 7:30 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
Councilmember Newsma.
4th Ward meeting Tuesday, April 7th at 7 o'clock at Robert Crown, and office hours Saturday, April 11th, 10 to noon at a coffee shop. Check the website.
Councilmember Burns.
We're most likely still trying to figure it out, going to cancel the ward meeting this month, but doing a special foster school oriented meeting next month. More information will go out shortly. I did want to quickly read a letter that I found on the windshield of my car as I was leaving for city council, addressed from the Family Focused Youth Program, which I was happy to see their name up there, not some kind of weird letter with glued on letters. But dear Fifth Ward Alderman, we are youth from the Family Focused Youth Program, and we are proud to be a part of the Fifth Ward community. This week, we have been learning about civic leadership and how young people use their voices to help strengthen the neighborhoods where we live and grow. The Fifth Ward is important to us because it is where many of our families live, learn, and spend time together. We want our neighborhood to continue being a place where young people feel safe, supported, and proud of where they come from. One thing we would like to see more of in our community is parks with age-appropriate equipment for children and youth. Many young people in the Fifth Ward enjoy spending time in our neighborhood parks and have equipment designed for different age groups would help more children and families enjoy them safely. Another concern we often talk about is making sure garbage is picked up regularly so that our streets and parks stay clean. A clean neighborhood helps everyone feel proud of where they live and keeps our community healthy and welcoming. As young people in the 5th Ward, we want to do our part to help care for our community. We believe that when youth and community leaders work together, we can make our neighborhood even stronger. The youth of today are the future leaders of the 5th Ward, and through the leadership and guidance of Ms. Joanne at the Family Focused Youth Program, we're learning how to use our voices to make a positive difference in our community. We appreciate the work you do for our community. Hope to continue learning how we can work together to make the 5th Ward an even stronger place for families and youth. So I'm going to boil that down, City Manager, the parks and clean streets and good garbage pickup. So we'll continue to work on that. That's all. Mayor, thank you.
Councilmember Sufferton. Councilmember Newsom is recognized to make a motion.
Pursuant to 5 Illinois compiled statutes 120/2C, I move that the City Council convene into executive session to discuss agenda items regarding litigation and workers' compensation. These agenda items are permitted subjects to be considered in executive session and are enumerated exceptions under the Open Meetings Act. These exceptions are 5 ILCS 120/2C, sections 11 and 12.
Councilmember Newsom moves the City Council resolve itself into executive session to discuss the items just enumerated. Councilmember Harris seconds. Would the clerk please take the roll?
Councilmember Rogers?
Aye.
Councilmember Hadakaris?
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly?
Aye.
Councilmember Harris? Aye. Councilmember Isles?
Aye.
Councilmember Newsma? Councilmember Burns? Councilmember Sufferton?
With 8 voting in favor and none voting against, the motion carries. And at 10:28 p.m., the City Council resolves itself into executive session to begin immediately in the Council Library.